The two stood shoulder to shoulder and retreated down the stairs. Li Mochou kept on attacking. Although she was winning, she was angry. In my life, whoever I wanted to kill, I killed. Today, two young punks are blocking my way. If that little bitch Lu Wushuang escapes, where will the great name of the Scarlet Serpent Deity go? She wanted to snatch back Lu Wushuang and so attacked down the stairs. Everyone fought with all their strength. They battled from the restaurant into the street. From the street, they battled into the suburbs. Yang Guo kept on calling out, "Good wifey, my dear sister, the further you run, the better. Sister Yellow and my sister in blue-green, you'd better leave. The two of us won't die." Yellow Qi didn't say a word. He was older than Yang Guo by only a few years, but he had a serious and stern air, completely different to Yang Guo's easygoing, rash, and hot-tempered personality. The two of them fought together against the enemy. Yellow Qi dealt with the ruthless attacks of the enemy. Yang Guo darted around to divert the enemy's attention. Li Mochou saw that Xiao Longnu had not appeared and was now at ease. She concentrated on the battle. The internal energy that Yang Guo and Yellow Qi had accumulated could not compare with Li Mochou's. As they battled to this point, the two of them were red-faced and out of breath. When Li Mochou saw this, she was pleased. "In under an hour, I'll be able to take their lives." At this moment, the air was suddenly filled with the calls of birds. The calls were clear. 2 large eagles attacked her head. 4 wings created gusts of wind, dirt, and dust filled the area. The force of the calls was tremendous. Yang Guo knew that it was the pair of eagles that belonged to the Guo couple. When he was younger, he had played with the eagles on Peach Blossom Island. Since the eagles were here, the Guo couple would be nearby. He had expelled himself from Chengyang Palace and didn't want to see Guo Jing again. He quickly leapt back many steps and put on the human skin mask. The eagles flew left and right, up and down, their wings attacking Li Mochou incessantly. The 2 eagles had a very good memory. They kept in their hearts what had happened years ago when they suffered the pain of the soul-freezing needles. When they saw her from far away, they immediately came and attacked, but they were still afraid of her needles. Every time she waved her hands, they quickly circled around. Yellow Qi was watching carefully and knew that it would be hard for the 2 eagles to win. He called out, "Brother Yang, let's go again. How would she cope with the 4 of us?" He was about to dash forward when he heard the sounds of horse hoofs from the southeast. A horse was galloping straight for this place. The horse was extremely fast. By the time the sounds of hoofbeats reached him, the horse was in front of him. It was long and tall, covered in red fur. Its spirit was amazing. Li Mochou and Yellow Qi were both startled. "How can this horse gallop so fast?" There was a girl in red on the horse's back. The girl and horse looked like an oncoming flame. The only thing that wasn't red was the girl's white face. Yang Guo saw the eagles and red horse and knew that it was the daughter of Guo Jing and Huang Rong Guo Fu. He saw her rein in the horse. The horse immediately held its ground. The horse stopped after being ordered to. It didn't make a sound and was composed. Yellow Qi grew up in Mongolia. He has seen countless spirited horses, but one with such a magnificent air he had never seen. He couldn't stop himself from being surprised. He didn't know that this horse was a blood-sweating precious horse that Guo Jing obtained from the plains of Mongolia. Then it was just a foal. Now it was grown up and could be said to be in its senior years. But this extraordinary horse was different from other horses in old age. Its bones and muscles were extremely strong. It hadn't lost any of its strength in its transition to old age. Yang Guo hadn't seen Guo Fu for a long time. He remembered she was an arrogant and bullying little girl. Now she had grown into a young girl who was as pleasant as a spring flower. After riding urgently for a time, sweat had formed on her forehead. Her cheeks reflected her red dress and looked even more glamorous. She looked at the eagles for a while and then glanced at Yellow Qi and the others. She saw Yang Guo dressed in the Mongolian uniform wearing the human skin mask. His face was extremely strange. She frowned, showing signs of disrespect. Yang Guo and she had never got along since they were young. He saw her looking at him with disgust, and his feelings of hate and humility were strengthened. He thought, "You don't respect me, but does that mean that I want you to look upon me with respect? Your father is a living hero. Your mother is the chief of the Beggar Clan. Your grandfather is one of the prominent martial artists in the world. There is no one who doesn't look at the Guo family with respect. What about my father and mother? My mother was a country girl, and I don't know who my father was. He died without reason. I don't want to compare myself with you. I was born into hardship and suffered the abuse of others. If you try to insult me again, I won't care." Guo Fu called out, "Wu brothers, it's the evil woman again." The young men on the horse were the Wu brothers, Wu Dunru and Wu Ziyuan. Both of them saw Li Mochou. She was the person who killed their mother. In these past few years, there wasn't a day when they didn't remember this. Who could have thought that they would meet again here? They quickly leapt off the horses. Each drew out a long sword and attacked from the left and right. Guo Fu called out, "I'm going as well." She took out a precious sword by the horse's reins and leapt off the horse to help. Li Mochou saw that the longer the battle went on, the more enemies there were, even though they were young. As soon as the two young men came forward, their faces and eyes red, they fought fiercely with their lives. The sword techniques refined, showing that they were under the tutelage of a famous master. The young girl in red joined in as well. As soon as she attacked, the tip of her sword quivered slightly. Sparkling in the eye, the sword thrust forward. Buried within the stance was an extremely lethal secondary aim. Though the internal energy was weak, the sword technique was profound and ingenious. Her heart shivered and she called out, "You are Peach Blossom's Island Miss Guo." Guo Fu chuckled and said, "So you know me." She unleashed two stances, aiming to harm her chest. Li Mochou raised her fly whisk and blocked the stances, thinking, "This little girl is very arrogant, attacking me without respect with your lowly skills. If I wasn't afraid of incurring your parents' wrath, even if there were 10 of you, I'd kill you all." The fly whisk flipped around. She wanted to take away her long sword when suddenly the sounds of wind came from each side. The Wu brothers thrust forward at the same time. Guo Jing taught the Wu brothers and Guo Fu martial arts personally. The three lived and played together on the island. Their sword skills were the same. The three sword skills were tightly matched. The advance and retreat complemented each other, although it wasn't some kind of formation. As the swords came forward, the force of it wasn't weak. The three and the pair of eagles continuously attacked, placing Li Mochou in their confinement. With the ability of the three, in a little while longer, Li Mochou could definitely hurt one of them, and the other two would not be able to protect themselves. But in front of her were many enemies. If she attacked forward, it still wouldn't be easy for her. And if she forced the Guo couple to come out and attack, she wouldn't be able to escape. She took back her fly whisk and chuckled. "Little babies, watch how the Scarlet Serpent Deity fights monkeys." She unleashed 6 stances in a row. Every stance aimed to harm, forcing Guo Fu and the Wu brothers to scurry, leaping and jumping around to avoid the stances. They did look a bit like monkeys jumping around. Li Mochou stood on her left leg and laughed. She turned around and called out, "Lingbo, let's go." The two of them hurried away in a northwest direction. Guo Fu called out, "She's scared of us, go after them." She ran after them. The Wu brothers utilized their lightness kung fu and followed. Li Mochou waved and brandished her fly whisk behind her, carefree and smoothly. Not an ounce of dust rose from beneath her feet, and she lightly floated away as though walking slowly. Hong Lingbo ran hurriedly. Guo Fu and the Wu brothers increased the energy in their legs, but the distance between them and the Li Mochou master and disciple was getting greater and further away. Only the pair of eagles were faster. They repeatedly attacked. Wu Dunru saw that they would not be able to take their revenge today, so he whistled and called the eagles back. Yellow Qi and the others were afraid that the three of them would lose the battle and hurried to meet up with them, only to see Guo Fu and the others returning. They went forward and greeted them. All of them were young, and in just a few words they spoke with great joviality. Yellow Qi suddenly thought of something and called out, "Where's Brother Yang?" Wan Yunping said, "He left by himself. I asked him where he was going, but he ignored me." She hung her head after she said this. Yellow Qi hurried to a hill and took a look all around, only to see the girl in blue-green walking shoulder to shoulder with Lu Wushuang far away. There wasn't a trace of Yang Guo. Yellow Qi felt a sense of loss. The first time they met, they fought together to repel an enemy, though it was for just a short time. But their lives were on the line so many times, and both shared a bitter hate for the enemy. Now he had suddenly disappeared without a trace. It was as if he had lost an old friend. When Yang Guo saw the Wu brothers arrive with Guo Fu, they attacked Li Mochou. The three of them were very close. The sword skills they used were refined, and in a few moves they had driven Li Mochou back. But he didn't know that Li Mochou left because she was worried about the Guo couple. It was not because buried within the sword stances were extremely strong internal energies that forced her to flee. That day when Guo Jing took him to Mount Jiangnan to learn martial arts, he had seen him show his might, defeating countless Quanzhen Taoists. His martial arts were extremely high. This was etched into Yang Guo's young mind, and he thought that disciples of Guo Jing would be 10 times better than him. He thought of worrying about himself first. When he saw Guo Fu and the Wus unleash their superb stances, he assumed that there must be some kind of ingenuity and mastery behind it. He was getting angrier as he watched. He remembered how he had fought with the Wu brothers when they were younger, with Guo Fu by the side calling out, "Hit him harder, harder!" And remembered how Huang Rong deliberately chose not to teach him martial arts, and Guo Jing, with his great skills, did not dare to pass on any martial arts to him. Instead, he sent him to Chengyang Palace to suffer torture and abuse. He felt anger and hatred in his chest. He couldn't stop himself. Then he saw Wanyan Ping, Lu Wushuang, the girl in blue-green, Yellow Yan all looking at him. They looked surprised, and he thought, "You believe the insults that Li Mochou called out at my Gugu. It doesn't matter if you look down on me, but how can you dare to look down on my Gugu? My face is angry because I'm angry at Guo Fu, the Wu brothers, Uncle Guo and Auntie Guo. You think that I've done unspeakable things with my Gugu, and that's why I look like this, is that it?" He suddenly ran away. He didn't follow the main roads and just ran without thinking into the wild lands. Right now, he couldn't pull himself together. He thought that everyone in the world was against him. He didn't remember that he was wearing the human skin mask. Although there was jealousy, hate, and anger on his face, how could Wanyan Ping and the others see this? Why would others laugh at him for no reason at all? Li Mochou's infamy is well known throughout the Wulin world. Who could believe what she says? He originally was heading from northwest to southeast, but he wanted to get away from these people as far as possible, so turned and headed northwest instead. His heart was in a mess. He loathed the world. He took off his mask and ran madly in the wild hills and mountains. When he was hungry, he plucked some wild fruits and vegetables to ease his hunger. He traveled further and further. Within a month, his hair was wild and unkempt, his clothes old and torn, and reached a tall mountain. He didn't know that this was one of the most famous 5 mountains in the world, Mount Hua. He saw the mountain was dangerous and rugged. He became mad and climbed up the mountain furiously. Though his lightness kung fu was good, Mount Hua is a dangerous place. One could not climb it on a whim. By the time he was halfway up the mountain, the weather suddenly became cold, the ground became hard, and the north wind gradually blew stronger and flakes of snow began falling from the sky. He was angry. He wanted to torture himself and did not try to find a place to avoid the snow. The stronger the wind and snow, the further he traveled. He carried on until it became night. The snow was heavy, the ground was slippery, and it became harder to recognize the paths. If he stepped into an empty space, he would definitely fall down to his death in the deep valley. He didn't care and took his life lightly. He looked up and walked forward. After a while, he suddenly heard a light kai sound. It sounded like some kind of beast was traveling in the snow. He immediately turned around and saw the image of a person flash past, darting into a valley. Yang Guo was startled and quickly went over to take a look in the valley. He saw someone hooking his 3 fingers into the rock, hanging in midair. Yang Guo saw that the 3 fingers supported the whole body above the valley. This person's martial arts were extremely high and had reached an unimaginable level. So he politely said, "Old senior, please come up." The person laughed, his voice shaking the valley, his fingers pulled up and he leapt up from the side of the mountain. The person suddenly shouted, "You are with the 5 clowns of the Tibetan border, aren't you? What are you doing sneaking around here in the middle of the night during a snowstorm?" Yang Guo was scolded for no reason and thought, "What am I doing sneaking around here in the middle of the night during a snowstorm?" This disturbed his thoughts, and he suddenly let out a cry. Remembering how unlucky he was, suffering the abuse of others, and his most respected and loved one Xiao Longnu blamed him for not understanding and had disappeared. They would probably never meet again in this lifetime. As he cried about this, all his life's worries and all the resentment and abuse he had suffered surfaced in his mind. When that person saw him cry, he was shocked. He heard him getting more pitiful as he cried and was even more surprised. When the person saw that his cries weren't going to end, he suddenly laughed. The laughter and crying joined together and shook the snow down from the mountaintops. When Yang Guo heard the laugh, his crying stopped and he angrily said, "What are you laughing at?" The person laughed and said, "What are you crying about?" Yang Guo was about to reply hatefully when he remembered this person's martial arts were extraordinary. He calmed down his anger and politely bowed and said, "Junior is Yang Guo. I hereby greet Senior." The person held a bamboo rod in his hand and he lightly pushed him on the arm. Yang Guo did not feel any great force, yet his body couldn't stop from falling backwards. With the force of that push, one would fall down and have to struggle to get up. But he had learned the toad stance, where one's legs are above their head. He flipped over in the air and remained upright. Neither of them could have guessed what had just happened. With Yang Guo's present abilities, making him fall in one push wasn't easy. Even Li Mochou or Qiu Chuji and the like couldn't do this to him. The other person saw him standing up steadily after flipping over in midair. He widened his eyes and looked at him and asked, "Why are you crying?" When Yang Guo examined him, he was a white-haired and bearded old man. The clothes on him were old and torn. It appeared that he was a beggar. Although it was dark, the white snow reflected off him. There was a red glow to his face, yet he looked graceful. Yang Guo's respect for him became evident, and he replied, "I'm a person with a life full of despair. There is no point in living. I should just die." The old beggar heard that his voice was full of resignation and resentment. The beggar nodded his head and asked, "Who's bullying you? Quickly tell Grandpa." Yang Guo said, "My father was killed by someone, but I don't know who. My mother died from illness. There is no one left in the world who loves or cares for me." The old beggar gave an N grunt and said, "That is sad. Who is the master who taught you Kung Fu?" Yang Guo thought. "Auntie Guo technically was my master, but she didn't teach me any martial arts. Mentioning the Quanjin Taoists fills me with hate. Ouyang Feng is my godfather, not my master. My Kung Fu was taught by Gu Gu, but she said she wants to be my wife. If I said she is my master, she will be angry. Wang Qingyang and Lin Keiying ancestors left their martial arts in the stone rooms. How can I say they are my master? I have many masters, but I can't mention any of them." This question disturbed his feelings again, and he let out a cry again, calling out, "I don't have a master, I don't have a master." The old beggar said, "Fine, fine. If you don't want to say, that's fine." Yang Guo sobbed, "It's not that I don't want to say, it's just that I don't have one." The old beggar said, "If you haven't got one, you haven't got one. What need is there for crying? Do you know the 5 clowns of the Tibetan border?" Yang Guo said, "I don't know them." The old beggar said, "I saw you alone in the dark and thought that you were the friend of the 5 clowns of the Tibetan border. Since you aren't, then that's good." This person was the 9-fingered wondrous beggar, Hong Qigong. After he passed on the position of the chief of the Beggar Clan to Wang Rong, he traveled alone, savoring the world's finest foods. The weather in Guangdong was pleasant, and the amount of exquisite foods endless. Afterwards he went to Lingnan, and he had all the food he wanted. For the last 10 years he had not returned to the Central Plains. In the lands of Guangdong, poisonous snakes were used in soups, tough cats were used in stews, fishes were like mice, the prawns were like dragons, fat snails were fried, dragon lice were steamed, the roast piglets had crisp skin, and the flesh of simmered fruit was red. Hong Qigong was in heaven, his pleasure boundless. Whenever he saw injustice, he would secretly help. He killed evildoers and punished traitors with his abilities. No one knew where he was or where he went. Sometimes he would listen in on some Beggar Clan members talking. He knew that under the orders of Huang Rong and Lu Yaojiao, the Beggar Clan was calm. The internal fight between the dirty, clothed, and clean-clothed factions was subsiding. So had the outside force of the Jin and the Iron Palm Clan. He had no worries. Every day he would just open his mouth, chew, and swallow. This year, the second clown of the 5 clowns of the Tibetan border killed some innocents in cold blood, killing numerous people. Hong Qigong wanted to take revenge. He was going to kill that clown, but thought killing one person is easy, finding the other 4 would be hard. So he secretly followed the second clown, waiting for him to meet up with the other 4, and then he would kill them all at once. But he didn't predict that he would have to follow him north for thousands of li, eventually winding up at Mount Hua. Right now, 4 clowns were present, only the first one had yet to arrive. In the middle of the night, Hong Qigong bumped into Yang Guo in the snow. Hong Qigong said, "Let's stop chatting, I can see you are hungry, let's cure our hunger first and then we'll talk some more." He cleared the snow, found some firewood and made a fire. Yang Guo helped him pick up some firewood and said, "What are you going to cook?" Hong Qigong said, "Centipedes." Yang Guo knew he was joking, and he gave a chuckle and didn't ask again. Hong Qigong laughed and said, "I've chased the 5 Tibetan border clowns from Lingnan to Mount Hua. If I don't have something good to eat, how can I say I'm sorry to this?" He patted his stomach. Yang Guo saw that his bones and muscles were distinguished. Only his stomach was a bit paunchy. Hong Qigong continued, "Mount Hua is the world's most cold and shady place. Centipedes that are born here are soft and tender. Guangdong is a warm place. Living things grow quickly. The centipedes there have tough and coarse flesh." Yang Guo heard that he was serious. It seems that he wasn't joking. Yang Guo was confused. Hong Qigong surrounded the fire with 4 stones. He took a pan from his back and placed it on the stones. He took 2 lumps of snow and placed them in the pan and said, Follow me to catch some centipedes." After some ups and downs, they came across a 20-foot-tall cliff. Yang Guo saw the cliff was extremely steep and didn't dare to leap up. Hong Qigong called out, "Useless boy, come up quickly." Yang Guo hated people who looked down on him. When he heard this, he clenched his teeth, his spirit rose and thought, "What's there to be scared of? If I fall to my death, then so be it." His courage grew, and there was more intent in his lightness kung fu when he used it. He followed close to Hong Qigong in an extremely dangerous and slippery place. He actually managed to pull himself up. In a short while, the pair climbed up to a peak where there were traces of human activity. Hong Qigong saw that he possessed much courage and lightness kung fu and was very pleased. With his experience, he couldn't tell the boy's martial arts origins. He wanted to ask but remembered about his food, so he went over to a rock and dug the soil with his hands. Not long after, a dead chicken was revealed. Yang Guo was curious and asked, "Hey, how come there's a chicken here?" He immediately understood and said, "Ah, Senior must have buried it here." Hong Qigong gave a chuckle and picked up the chicken. Yang Guo could see clearly in the reflection of the snow. He saw over 100 centipedes, each about 7 or 8 inches long, biting into the chicken. The centipedes were large, had red and black stripes, and were wiggling about. He had wandered around the world of Jianghu since he was young. He wasn't afraid of poison, but when he suddenly saw the large centipedes, he couldn't refrain from being afraid. Hong Qigong was pleased with himself and said, "Centipedes and chickens are of an opposite nature. I buried this chicken yesterday, and indeed it has lured centipedes from all over." He took out a bundle of cloth and wrapped it around the chicken and centipedes. He descended the peak delightedly. Yang Guo followed behind, wondering, could it be that you can actually eat centipedes? But judging from his actions, it doesn't seem like he's trying to scare me. The lumps of snow in the pan had now turned to boiling water. Hong Qigong opened his bundle and picked up the centipedes by the tail and threw them into the pan. The centipedes struggled for a second or two, but were soon boiled to death. Hong Qigong said, "Before it dies, the centipede excretes all of its poison. The poison in that pan is incomparable." Yang Guo threw the pan of poisonous water down the valley. Hong Qigong took out a small knife and chopped off the heads and tails of the centipedes. He took the shell off to reveal the flesh. It was white as snow and was like a large shrimp, quite an attractive sight. Yang Guo thought, "Using this method, I'm afraid that you really can eat them." Hong Qigong melted another 2 lumps of snow and cleaned the flesh of the centipede so there would be no traces of poison. And then he took out 7 or 8 small and large boxes from his backpack. In the boxes were ingredients such as oil, salt, jams, vinegar, and the like. He placed some oil in the pan and fried the centipedes. Immediately an appetizing scent flowed into the nose. Yang Guo saw that he was drooling, revealing his glutton side. He couldn't stop himself from being startled and laughed at the same time. Hong Qigong fried the centipedes until they were slightly golden, and then mixed in some other ingredients. He stretched out his hand and placed a centipede in his mouth. He lightly chewed it a few times and closed his eyes and sighed. He felt that none of the pleasures in the world can be compared with this. He took a wine gourd from his back and placed it to the side and said, "When eating centipedes, don't drink wine, otherwise the taste of the centipedes will be ruined." He ate 10 or so centipedes in one go and then said to Yang Guo, "Just eat." "Why are you being so polite?" Yang Guo shook his head and said, "I don't want to eat." Hong Qigong was startled and then laughed. He said, that's right. I've seen many heroes and good men who can kill without blinking, but none of them dare to eat centipedes with this old beggar. Hi. So you are just a cowardly punk." He picked up 2 small twigs and used them as chopsticks and picked up a centipede. Hong Qigong knew what he was thinking and said, "You are going to close your eyes and swallow without chewing. That's called being a scoundrel, not a hero." Yang Guo said, "What's so heroic about eating poison?" Hong Qigong said, "There are many people who talk big and class themselves as heroes, but those who dare to eat centipedes are few and far between." Yang Guo thought, "Nothing is bigger than death." He placed the centipede in his mouth and bit down. As soon as he bit down, he felt his mouth fill with a sweet taste. It was crisp and fragrant and extremely sweet. He had never tasted anything like it in his life. He chewed a few more times and swallowed. He then picked up a second centipede and said, "Extraordinary. Hong Qigong saw that he was eating with pleasure and was delighted. The 2 of them grabbed and snacked. Soon the 100 or so centipedes were all gone. Hong Qigong licked the juices around his lips and wished that there could be another 100 centipedes for his stomach. Yang Guo said, "I'll go and bury the chicken again and lure some more centipedes." Hong Qigong said. It's no use, one, the chicken has lost its attraction. Secondly, there aren't any more fat and large centipedes around here anymore. Hong Qigong stretched and yawned. He got down onto snowy ground and said, I have rushed here without sleeping for 5 days and 5 nights. Now that I've had a great meal, I'm going to sleep for 3 days. Don't wake me even if the sky falls down. Look after me, don't let any monsters bite my head off in one go while I'm not aware. Yang Guo laughed. Yes, sir. Hong Qigong closed his eyes, and in a short while he fell into a deep sleep. Yang Guo thought, this senior is really an extraordinary person. Is he really going to sleep for 3 days? It doesn't matter if he's lying or telling the truth. I have nowhere to go anyway. I'll just wait for 3 days. The Mount Hua centipedes are one of the coolest objects in the world. After Yang Guo ate them, he felt a chill in his stomach, so he found a rock to sit on, and after a while of meditating, his body became more comfortable. Right now, the sky was filled with falling snow that was like the feathers of swans. It snowed without stopping. Hong Qigong's head and body was covered with snow. He was like a lump of cotton wool. A person breathes warm air. As soon as a snowflake meets it, it will immediately melt. How did the snow remain intact on his face? Yang Guo did not understand at first, but then it was clear to him. That's it. When he is sleeping, he is circulating his incredible internal energy, keeping the warm air within his body. He is a living person, but when he is sleeping, he looks like a corpse. This level of internal energy is frightening. Gugu let me sleep on the chilled jade bed in hopes that I would be able to refine my internal energy to such profound state. AI. Chilled jade bed, chilled jade bed. Dawn came. Hong Qigong's body was buried within the snow. Nothing could be seen where he was except for the fact that the snow on the ground was higher there. Everywhere was deep with snow, but Yang Guo was not tired. He suddenly heard footsteps in the snow towards the mountains in the northeast. He looked carefully and saw 5 black shadows approaching. Their movements were rapid. The sabers on their backs glittered. Yang Guo thought, they are probably the 5 clowns of the Tibetan border that Senior mentioned. He hid behind a large rock. In a short while, the 5 people arrived in front of the rock. One of them said, ah, and called out, it's the old beggar's gourd. Another one's voice quivered as he said, he's on Mount Hua. The 5 of them were frightened. They came together and quietly consulted with each other. Suddenly, the 5 of them separated and descended down the peak. The paths of the peak were narrow. One of them dashed forward a few steps and stepped onto Hong Qigong and felt something soft below his feet. The person called out, AI. The other 4 stopped and drew near. They wiped away the layers of snow and saw Hong Qigong lying on the ground, appearing as if he had died a long time ago. The 5 of them were delighted. They stretched out their finger across his nose. There was no breathing, and his body was as cold as ice. The 5 of them shouted out in joy and leapt about. They were 100 times happier than the joy they would feel if they found a precious treasure. One of them said, the old beggar has been following all along. He made things hard for me and he died here. Another person said, that scoundrel Hong Qigong has extraordinary martial arts. Why would he die all of a sudden? Another one said, even if one's martial arts are high, does that mean they don't have to die? Just think, that old scoundrel is pretty old. The other 4 called out together, it's lucky that the devil has come and taken him, otherwise he'd be difficult to handle. The one ranked first said, come, let's vent our anger on the old beggar by chopping him a few times. No matter if he is the 9-fingered wondrous beggar Hong Qigong, hero of the world. In the end, he's going to end up being chopped into 17 or 28 pieces by the 5 heroes of the Tibetan border. Yang Guo thought, so that old senior is Hong Qigong. No wonder his martial arts are so good. He had heard Hong Qigong's name and of his famous 18 subduing dragon palms from Xiao Longnu before when they were talking. But Hong Qigong's appearance and behavior weren't known to Lin Keiying, let alone Xiao Longnu. His hand held some jade bee needles. Thinking fighting the 5 of them together would be hard, he could only ambush them with his projectiles. After hurting 2 or 3 of them, he could deal with the remaining ones. As he heard them say that they would chop up Hong Qigong to vent their anger, he was afraid that they would harm him. He didn't shoot out the needles and immediately shouted and leapt out from behind the rock. He didn't have a weapon, so he picked up 2 twigs. He quickly unleashed his swift stances, diverting the 5. The 5 stances were extremely fast. It was a pity that he called out first and gave the 5 clowns some time to prepare. Otherwise, 1 or 2 of them would have been hit. The 5 clowns were worried about themselves first and darted and dodged away to avoid the attacks. The 5 turned around and saw it was a young kid with old and torn garments. his hands holding two branches, their fright now dissipated. The big clown shouted, "Little punk, you're a little beggar of the Beggar Clan, aren't you? Your old beggar ancestor has gone to heaven. Quickly kneel and kowtow to us 5 masters." Yang Guo saw how they moved. Their movements revealed their kung fu. The 5 of them had a large saber on their backs. Their kung fu came from the same master. There was some difference between their abilities, but they all had the same type of stances. If it was one-on-one, he would definitely win, but if the 5 of them attacked all at once, he would not be able to fight them off. He heard the big clown telling him to kowtow and replied, "Yes, Junior here will kowtow to the 5 masters." He took a step forward and bowed down. He kneeled and bowed according to the stance, first greet bow after. This move was used by Grandma's son on the Quanjin Taoist Zhang Guang when he wasn't expecting it. An empty container shot out and almost took his eye. After Yang Guo used the stance, first greet bow after, he followed with a stance of push the window to see the moon. His arms swept across and the 2 branches came out from the left and right. On his left was the 5th clown. On his right was the 3rd clown. This stance of push the window to see the moon was extremely evil. The 3rd clown's kung fu was quite high. He quickly brought down his saber to block it. The back of his saber had been struck and his hand heated up. He almost lost his saber. The 5th clown was struck on the leg. A kala sound was heard. Although the leg wasn't broken, it was still painful. He couldn't stand up. The other 4 clowns were angry. 4 sabers chopped down. Fu 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 fu. Yang Guo was swift and nimble. He darted east and dodged west. The 4 clowns couldn't do anything to him for the time being. After fighting for a while, the 5th clown joined in. He was extremely angry and fought with his life. Yang Guo's lightness kung fu was much higher than the 5 clowns. If he wanted to escape, it wasn't hard, but he remembered Hong Qigong. He was afraid that if he left, then the clowns will kill Hong Qigong. But he couldn't beat the 5 of them fighting together. He unleashed some dangerous stances, and in the middle of it, he bent down and picked up Hong Qigong. His right hand fought with the branch as he found a path to escape. He took a deep breath and hurried over 100 feet. The 5 clowns of the Tibetan border chased after him. Yang Guo felt that Hong Qigong was icy cold. He couldn't stop himself from being alarmed. He thought that if Hong Qigong was going to get deeper into his sleep, he won't be able to wake up. Could it be that he really was dead? He called out, "Senior! Senior!" Hong Qigong didn't move an inch. It appeared that he was dead, but he wasn't stiff like a corpse. Yang Guo stretched out his hand and felt his chest. There seemed to be a faint heartbeat, but there were no indication of breathing from the nose. In this pause, the 1st clown caught up with them, but because he saw that Yang Guo's skills were excellent, he was worried and didn't dare to fight alone. By the time the 2nd clown and 4th clown arrived, Yang Guo had gone another 100 feet. The 5 clowns of the Tibetan border saw him ascending the peak and saw that there was only one trail up there. They thought, "Could it be that you know how to fly?" There was no need to rush. They followed step by step. The mountain path was getting more and more treacherous as he went on. When Yang Guo turned around a corner, he saw an extremely narrow path before him. It wasn't easy for one person to pass. By the narrow path was a 2,000-foot deep abyss. The mists obscured the bottom, he thought. "This is the best place. I'll fend them off here." He quickened his pace and got over the narrow path. He placed Hong Qigong down by a large rock and turned around. The 1st clown had reached the entrance to the narrow path. Yang Guo dashed over and shouted, "Ugly freak, do you dare to come over?" The 1st clown was really scared of being knocked over into the abyss by Yang Guo and hurriedly leapt back. Yang Guo stood at the entrance of the path. The morning sun was now in the sky. The eye could see a fine jade mountain. Gems circled the floor of the abyss, and the sunlight reflected off the white snow. The scene was magnificent. Yang Guo placed the human skin mask on his face and shouted, "Are you ugly or am I ugly?" The 5 clowns of the Tibetan border were ugly, but they weren't that ugly. The clown comes from their actions and the amount of bullshit they talk about on the road. They saw Yang Guo touch his face and his face changed. His face was yellow, looked wooden, like a corpse out of a cemetery. The 5 clowns looked at each other and all without exception were startled. Yang Guo retreated to the narrowest point of the path. He used the kicking force of the leading star. His left leg stood on the ground. His right leg kicked out at the sky, his body moving lightly like the wind in midair. In the blink of an eye, his heroic air emerged. "Even if the enemy was thousands of soldiers and 10,000 horses, I could still block them one-on-one." The 5 clowns muttered to themselves, "Where from the Beggar Clan did this strange young kid come from?" They saw that in front of them was dangerous ground. They didn't dare to rush through, and they consulted each other. "We'll wait here and take turns to leave the mountain for food. Within 2 days, he will definitely have no strength due to hunger." 4 of the clowns lined up at the mouth of the narrow path and let the second clown descend the mountain to look for food. The sides were deadlocked. Yang Guo didn't dare go over, and the 4 clowns didn't dare go over either. By the second day, the second clown had come back with food. The 5 clowns took big bites and ate noisily. Yang Guo was already burning up with hunger. He turned around and looked at Hong Qigong and saw him looking the same as the day before and thought, "If he is sleeping, then he would toss and turn in his dreams, but he hasn't moved an inch. I'm afraid that he really is dead. If I endure another day, I will have no strength. It will be even harder for me to defend. Why don't I leave now, and I may have a chance of escaping?" He slowly stood up and thought, "He told me that he is going to sleep for 3 days and told me to look after him. I promised him with my own mouth. How can I leave him now?" He fought off the hunger and closed his eyes to rest. By the 3rd day, Hong Qigong was still motionless like he was on the 1st day. Yang Guo looked on and began to question himself. "He's already dead, and I'm still guarding him. That's too dumb. If I endure another half a day of hunger, there will be no need for the 5 clowns to kill me. I will have already died of starvation." He picked up some snow from the rocks and swallowed some. His empty stomach gradually felt a bit better. He thought, "I haven't been filial to my parents. I have hurt Gugu. I have no brothers or sisters. I haven't even got a best friend. I should stop mentioning the words personal loyalty." The words trust, good and bad echoed in his mind. "I still need to guard him." He continued, "When Auntie Guo and I were talking about literature, we talked about the meeting of a boy and girl underneath the bridge. The girl was stopped by a flood, but the boy didn't dare to miss the meeting. He held onto the bridge and died in vain. Later, that person was famous for hundreds of years. I, Yang Guo, have suffered the world's mistreatment. If I don't keep to this promise, then I'll be even more despised by the world. Even if it means death, I must guard him for 3 days." A day and night passed by in the wink of an eye. Early on in the 4th day, Yang Guo went over to Hong Qigong and checked his breathing. Still, there was no sign of life. He sighed and saluted him, saying, "Senior Hong, I have kept to my promise of guarding you for 3 days. It's too bad that Senior has passed away tragically. This disciple has not got the power to protect your corpse. It would be best if I throw you into the deep valley and avoid the insults and disrespect of the scoundrels." He picked up his body and went over to the narrow path. The 5 clowns knew that he couldn't endure the hunger and now wanted to escape. They all called out and flew over. Yang Guo gave a shout and flung Hong Qigong down the deep valley and dashed forward to the 1st clown. Exhausted from travels, Yang Guo had dashed forward only 2 steps when suddenly a gust of wind brushed over his head. A person darted past and stood between him and the 5 clowns and laughed. That was a great slumber. It was the 9-fingered, wondrous beggar Hong Qigong. Yang Guo was delighted while the 5 clowns were startled and shocked. When Hong Qigong first lay down on the snow, he really was sleeping, but woke up when the 5th clown stepped on him. He wanted to test the young man and see whether he could keep his promise of guarding him for 3 days. Every time Yang Guo checked his breathing, he would stop breathing and pretended to be dead. Now he was standing at the mouth of the path with an awe-inspiring air. His left hand made a semicircle, his right hand pushed out a palm. It was his life's proudest work, the stance of overcoming the dragon with regret from the 18 dragon-subduing palms. The 1st clown couldn't avoid it. He knew he couldn't meet this stance head-on, but all he could do was to push his palms out and use his strength to fend off the attack. Hong Qigong was keeping his palms' power in check. He only used 10% of his internal energy, but the 1st clown felt his arms go numb and his chest ache. The 2nd clown saw that he was in danger. He was afraid that Hong Qigong's palms will force him into the deep valley, so he quickly stretched out his hand and pushed the 1st clown's back. Hong Qigong's palm power increased. The 2nd clown moved back, almost slipping down into the deep valley. The 4th clown was standing behind them and stretched out his arm to support them. Hong Qigong's palm's power spread through them. It spread towards the 4th clown, who in turn passed it onto the 3rd clown, and the 3rd clown spread it towards the final one in the line, the 5th clown. The clowns had nowhere to hide and nowhere to run. In the blink of an eye, they were defeated by Hong Qigong's single palm. Hong Qigong laughed. "You 5 scoundrels are evil and wicked. You should be able to die without complaint under the single palm of the old beggar." The 5 of them positioned themselves into the mount posture. They flared up their kai and united their internal energy to resist the single palm, but they felt the force of the palm getting heavier. Their chests felt tighter, and gradually it was becoming more difficult to breathe. Hong Qigong suddenly gave out a ye call showing his surprise. He took back 80% of his palm's power and said, "Your internal energy has its good points. Who is your master?" The first clown still had his two palms pushing out against him. He struggled for breath as he said, "We are under the tutelage of Master Derba." Hong Qigong shook his head and said, "Derba, I haven't heard of him. Whom your internal energy can be spread mutually to each other. This kung fu is terrific." Yang Guo thought, to get Hong Qigong to say terrific, then it really must be terrific. Yet when I looked at their skills, I thought they were very ordinary and none of them can beat me. Hong Qigong asked, "What's your sect?" The first clown said, "Our master is the second disciple of Western Tibet's holy monk Jinlun Fawang." Hong Qigong shook his head again and said, "Western Tibet's holy monk Jinlun Fawang? I've never heard of him. Western Tibet has a monk, his name is Reverend Lingjai, he I have seen. His kung fu is stronger than yours, but his skills aren't advanced. Your kung fu is good. It makes sense. Go and get your Grand Master here to fight with me." The first monk replied, "Our Grand Master is a holy monk, the living Buddha, Mongolia's #1 martial artist, all-knowing and all-powerful." How? The second clown noticed from Hong Qigong's tone that he was going to spare them, but with the way that the first clown was replying, they were cutting off their escape route, so he quickly interrupted and said, Yes. We'll quickly go and get our Grand Master here to duel with Hong Qigong. Only our Grand Master can fight with Senior Hong. We juniors will raise our wine gourds and as he said this, there came a duo sound. A person appeared from around the corner of the mountain. His body was upside down, each hand holding a piece of rock, walking with his palms. It was Western Poison Ouyang Feng. Yang Guo's voice cracked as he called out, "Father!" Ouyang Feng did not bother to find out what was happening and leapt behind the 5 clowns and stretched out his right foot and placed it on their backs. A strong energy rushed through the 5 clowns. Hong Qigong was shocked with the sudden appearance of Ouyang Feng. He heard Yang Guo call him father and understood that he was his son. No wonder he was so good. He felt his arm sink as the opponent's internal energy reached him. He quickly increased his strength and returned the attack. Since the second Mount Hua competition, Hong Qigong had not seen Ouyang Feng for over 10 years. Although Ouyang Feng's mind was unclear, he practiced the contrary 9 yin manual. The more he practiced, the stranger his kung fu became, and the stranger it became, the more powerful he became. Gu Jing and Huang Rong had recited a small portion of the manual to Hong Qigong. It made an impression on his kung fu and great progress in his martial arts. The final stage of the 9 yin manual is superior to the contrary 9 yin manual. Although Hong Qigong only knew a little, he wasn't inferior to Ouyang Feng. Tens of years ago, it was difficult to separate the two. Since then, they had both met new boundaries. Today, they came across each other on Mount Hua for the 3rd time, once internal energy went out. It was indeed hard to differentiate between the two. The ones that were to be pitied are the 5 clowns of the Tibetan border. Being sandwiched between 2 of the world's most powerful fighters, they became the apparatus for kung fu practice. A sandbag for punches and kicks. They were cold for a while, then hot for a while. Their breathing was tight and then slow. The bones all over their body made ka-la noises. It was 100 times more excruciating than the most severe punishments. Ouyang Feng suddenly asked, "The 5's internal energy is very good. What sect are you from?" Yang Guo thought, "Even Godfather says their internal energy is very good. The 5 clowns, indeed, are not run-of-the-mill fighters." He heard Hong Qigong say, "They said they are the grand disciples of Western Tibet's holy monk Jinlun Fawang." Ouyang Feng said, "Jinlun Fawang compared to you, who's better?" Hong Qigong said, "Don't know. I don't think there's much difference." Ouyang Feng said, "How about compared with me?" Hong Qigong said, "He's better than you a bit." Ouyang Feng was shocked and called out, "I don't believe it." In between the exchange of words, the energy in the hand and foot increased. Hong Qigong sent out different levels of palm energy, but they were all dispersed by Ouyang Feng's foot energy. The power in the foot increased, but it was difficult to move Hong Qigong back even half an inch. After this exchange, both admired each other. They laughed and jumped back. The strong force within the 5 clowns of the Tibetan border suddenly disappeared. They couldn't stop themselves wobbling about as if they were drunk on wine. The 5 had the internal energies of 2 great fighters circulated to and fro between them. Their internal organs had been seriously injured. The muscles weakened and bones softened. They had become invalids. They wouldn't be able to fight off even a small child of 7 or 8 years of age. Hong Qigong shouted, "You 5 scoundrels, your lifelines haven't reached their end today. It doesn't matter anyway since you can't do any more harm, just crawl away. Remember to go and tell your Grand Master Jinlun Fawang to come to the Central Plains and find me so we can do a little sparring." Ouyang Feng said, "With me too." The 5 clowns of the Tibetan border all agreed and limped away, supporting each other as they descended down from the peak. Ouyang Feng flipped upright and stared at Hong Qigong and then shouted, "Hey, your kung fu is very good, what's your name?" After hearing this and seeing the confused look on his face, Hong Qigong knew that since he went mad over 10 years ago, he hadn't recovered and so said, "I'm called Ouyang Feng, what's your name?" Ouyang Feng's heart shook. He felt that the words, Ouyang Feng, were very familiar, but he couldn't remember what he was called, and he shook his head and said, "I don't know." "Hey, what am I called?" Hong Qigong laughed and said, "You don't even know your own name, go home and think about it." Ouyang Feng angrily said, "You must know, tell me." Hong Qigong said, "Fine, you're called Smelly Toad." The word toad was very familiar to Ouyang Feng. When he heard this it felt right, but there was also a feeling that it was wrong. He and Hong Qigong had been adversaries for tens of years. The hate had been etched deeply into his mind, although he didn't understand right now. Yet when he looked at him, Ouyang Feng felt aggravated. Hong Qigong saw him standing there in a daze. A fierce glow was in his eyes. Hong Qigong secretly put his guard up. Indeed, he heard Ouyang Feng shout out and ruthlessly throw himself forward. He didn't dare hesitate and immediately used his 18 dragon subduing palms. The two fought in the wind and the slippery snow on a narrow path that was only about a foot wide, using their greatest skills with great effort in the battle. On one side was a 2,000-foot deep chasm. Just one little mistake and they would fall to their deaths. This was much more dangerous than fighting on flat, even ground. The two of them were now fairly old, though their vigor has lessened. Their study of martial arts had reached an extremely pure level. The stances were pure and profound, so profound that everything was ingenious and masterly. Only 10 or so moves were exchanged. The two couldn't stop themselves from admiring each other. Ouyang Feng said, "The old beggar is very lethal." Hong Qigong laughed and said, "Smelly Toad is also terrific." Yang Guo knew that the terrain was extremely dangerous. He was afraid that Ouyang Feng would fall down into the valley. But then he could see that Hong Qigong was in distress and hoped that he too would be safe. Ouyang Feng was his godfather. He had deep feelings for him. Nevertheless, Hong Qigong was gallant. He had the air of a great hero around him. As soon as he met him, an impression was left in his heart. He had endured hunger, cold, extreme dangers in guarding Hong Qigong for 3 days and 3 nights. Although they didn't say a word to each other in the 3 days, in Yang Guo's mind, it was as if they both endured hundreds and hundreds of life-threatening dangers together. Tens of stances later, Yang Guo saw that the two's incomparably swift and powerful attacks had changed from dangerous to safe. He soon forgot about the safety of the two and concentrated on watching the masterly kung fu that was on display. The 9-yin manual is the peak of the world's martial arts. He only knew odd fragments of it. Now he saw the two use the theories of the manual within their stances. He couldn't help himself from being shocked and surprised. He thought, so even an ordinary sentence from the manual has so many ways to express its meaning. Over 1,000 stances passed. Although the two had yet to use all their skills, their age was catching up with them. They felt they were getting out of breath, and their hearts were beating faster. It was unavoidable that their arms and legs would get slower. Yang Guo called out, "You two have been fighting for over half a day. You must be hungry. How about eating first and then carry on later?" As soon as Hong Qigong heard the word eat, he immediately jumped back and said, "Great idea, great idea." Yang Guo had seen the 5th clown bring up cold food in a bamboo basket and had placed off to the side. He went to it and brought it over and opened the lid. He saw cold chicken and meat, white wine and cold rice. Everything that was needed was there. Hong Qigong was delighted. He picked up a cold chicken and bit down with large bites hurriedly, eating noisily. Yang Guo picked up some cold meat and passed it to Ouyang Feng and softly said, "Father, where have you been all this time?" Ouyang Feng stared at him and said, "I've been searching for you." Yang Guo's heart ached and thought, "There is someone on this world that actually loves me like this." He held his arm and said, "Father, you are Ouyang Feng. Senior Hong is a good person, don't fight him." Ouyang Feng pointed to Hong Qigong and said, "He's Ouyang Feng. Ouyang Feng is a bad person." Yang Guo saw that his mind was confused and felt sad. Hong Qigong laughed and said, "You're right. Ouyang Feng is a bad person. Ouyang Feng deserves to die." Ouyang Feng looked at Hong Qigong and then at Yang Guo. He exhausted his strength trying to remember, but his mind and memories were still scrambled. Yang Guo fed Ouyang Feng some food and then stood up. He said to Hong Qigong, "Senior Hong, he is my godfather. He has a severe mental illness. His mind is confused. Please pity him and don't make it hard for him." Hong Qigong heard this and nodded a few times and said, "Young man, so he's your godfather." Who could have expected that Ouyang Feng would suddenly leap up and called out, "Ouyang Feng, we can't find a winner using our fists and kicks. We'll compete again using weapons." Hong Qigong shook his head and said, "There's no need to compete, let's just say you win." Ouyang Feng said, "What win or lose? I must kill you." He stretched out his hand and broke off a branch. He took off the twigs and leaves from the branch, forming a staff. He attacked downwards at Hong Qigong's head. His snake staff was famous years ago. It was extremely lethal, although there wasn't a snake at the head of this staff. Before the attack arrived, the wind produced was so strong that it made it difficult for Yang Guo to breathe. Yang Guo quickly dived out of the way. When he looked up at Hong Qigong, he saw him pick up a branch and used it as a short rod. The two battled again. Hong Qigong's dog-beating stick technique has nothing like it in the world, but he doesn't use it casually. Apart from this technique, he has many refined and ingenious rod stances, and right now he was using them. This heated battle was another spectacular fight like the last one with fists and kicks. The stick was like an elusive dragon, the staff like an efficacious dancing snake. It was like watching a rainbow traveling across the sky or a shooting star chasing after the moon. The fight held Yang Guo entranced as he watched. Hong Qigong smelt the fragrant scent and called out, "Smelly toad, I don't want to fight with you, eating is more important." He ran to Yang Guo's side and picked up 2 clumps of mountain herbs and ate them. Although they burnt his mouth, he kept on chewing. Ouyang Feng rushed over and raised his staff over Hong Qigong's head, chopping down. Hong Qigong ignored him and threw him a clump of the mountain herbs and called out, "Just eat." Ouyang Feng stopped. He caught it and started to eat it, forgetting about the heated battle they were just in. That night, the 3 of them slept in a cave. Yang Guo wanted to help his godfather regain his memories and mentioned past events to him. Ouyang Feng stood there in a daze, not replying. Sometimes he would hit his head with his fist, showing that he's trying extremely hard to remember, but he could not. It was extremely hard for him. Yang Guo worried that he would get even crazier, so made him go to sleep. He himself was tossing and turning and couldn't sleep. He was thinking about the fist and palm stances that the two used. The more he thought about it, the more excited he got. He couldn't stop himself and got up quietly. Studying them, he felt that the ingenuity and mastery of the stances was boundless. He practiced into the middle of the night until he was extremely tired and went to sleep. The next morning, Yang Guo had not yet wakened up from his sleep when he heard gusts of wind from outside the cave. In between them were the sounds of leaping and jumping. He quickly hurried outside to see Hong Qigong and Ouyang Feng battling each other heatedly again. He sighed and thought, "These 2 old seniors aren't acting their age. What's the point of fighting like this?" He could only sit aside and watch. He saw Hong Qigong's stances and understood every stance and every move, but it was difficult for him to grasp Ouyang Feng's strange stances. Every time Hong Qigong seemed to gain the upper hand, Ouyang Feng's strange stances would bring them to a level pegging again. The 2 of them battled in the day and slept at night. They fought for 4 days running. Both of them were exhausted, but neither of them dared to let slip even half a stance. Yang Guo pondered, "Whatever happens tomorrow, I mustn't allow them to fight again." That night he waited for Ouyang Feng to go to sleep and then quietly said to Hong Qigong, "Senior, please come outside, I have something to say." Hong Qigong followed him outside. About 100 feet away from the cave, Yang Guo suddenly got down on his knees and kept on kowtowing, yet he didn't say a word. Hong Qigong was startled but understood. He knew that Yang Guo wanted him to have pity on Ouyang Feng and his illness and leave. He laughed at the sky and said, "So be it." After only walking away for a few tens of feet, his garments were held in a gust of wind. Ouyang Feng darted out of the cave and swept out his staff angrily shouting, "Old beggar trying to escape." Hong Qigong conceded 3 stances to him as he tried to find a path of escape, but he was held up by the gusts of wind created by the staff. When skilled fighters are dueling, one mustn't concede even half a move. Hong Qigong had the intention of conceding to him and immediately fell into danger. It was a desperate situation. Many times he almost lost his life to the staff. He saw the staff heading straight for him, attacking his lower abdomen. He knew that this stance must have a lethal move to follow it. He couldn't avoid it and let him have this stance. He raised his stick to block it. He suddenly felt a powerful internal energy surging through the staff. He couldn't stop himself from being shocked. "You want to compete internal energy with me?" he thought. "The enemy's internal energy is arriving. There is no other way to defend apart from using my own internal energy to block it." He quickly circulated his internal energy and prepared to defend. If they lose concentration for a split second and get struck by the opponent's weapon or palm, their internal energy will be all over their body and will defend against the attack. Although they would be injured, it won't be anything serious. Now that they are competing with internal energy, they couldn't concede to the other one iota. They had reached a stage where it wouldn't finish unless one died. The two of them had fought each other many times in the past, and each time both were worried about their own safety and how strong the other was. Normally, they wouldn't use such a dangerous way to attack each other since they were afraid that in their quest to seek glory, they would be disgraced instead and lose their lives for no purpose. But Ouyang Feng wasn't thinking properly. He hadn't managed to gain victory in the last few days, so suddenly circulated his internal energy to attack. Tens of years ago, Hong Qigong hated Ouyang Feng to the bone, but now he was old and had mellowed. Now Ouyang Feng was mad and Yang Guo had pleaded for his life. Hong Qigong had no intentions of killing him, so he circulated his Kai throughout his Dan Tian. He just defended and didn't attack, waiting for Ouyang Feng to exert all his energy. He didn't know that his opponent's internal energy was like the waves of a large river, the source of it incessantly sending out waves of internal energy. After one wave came another. There was no sign of it weakening, but instead it was getting fiercer and fiercer. Hong Qigong always believed that his internal energy was profound. In these past years, he had refined his fierce internal energy to new levels. Even if he couldn't beat Western poison, if he used all his energy to defend, he would not lose. But who could have guessed that after all these exchanges of internal energy, Ouyang Feng was getting stronger and stronger. Hong Qigong remembered the time when he was competing internal energy with Ouyang Feng, with the 5 clowns of the Tibetan border sandwiched in between them. Ouyang Feng had sent out his internal energy with his foot 3 times, each time stronger than the last. He noticed at that time that before the first wave of internal energy had dissipated, the second wave had arrived. After the second wave arrived, the third followed. If he just defended and let him keep on pressing, it would definitely be hard to defend against. Only by returning his own energy between the gaps and forcing him to defend will he stop Ouyang Feng from amassing a great force. Once he thought about this, he immediately circulated his internal energy and attacked. The two's bodies shook as the energies collided. When Yang Guo saw the two competing internal energy, he was extremely worried. If he attacked Hong Qigong's back, he would help his godfather gain victory. He looked at Hong Qigong and saw a head full of white hair, and within his commanding air there was a compassionate and merciful part. In the spaces between his heroic natures there was peacefulness to go with it. He couldn't stop himself from bowing down to him, not to mention that he had responded to his plea and was willing to leave. How could he harm him? The two of them froze for a while. White smoke came out from Ouyang Feng's head, and gradually it became denser and denser, like steam coming from a steamer. Hong Qigong had also used all his strength to defend. Right now, he had no way to control whether or not he would harm his opponent's life. If he could just protect himself, that would be fortunate enough. They competed from dawn until morning, from morning until midday, until Hong Qigong gradually felt his internal energy draining away. However, his opponent's internal energy kept on surging towards him like a violent storm. He quietly said, "So the madder the old poisonous animal gets, the more powerful he becomes. The old beggar's life is going to end today." He knew that his battle would have an ending. He now had no way to avoid this and could only use all his strength to resist. But he didn't know that Ouyang Feng's internal energy was also declining due to exhaustion. It was hard for him to maintain his palm's power. They continued for another 4 hours until it got dark. Yang Guo saw that their faces had changed. He thought that if they battled any longer, they would definitely perish together. The difference in internal energy between him and the two was vast. If he wanted to break them up himself, most probably he would not be able to separate them. Instead, he would lose his life in the attempt. He delayed for a while and saw Ouyang Feng's face looked worried, and Hong Qigong was out of breath. He thought, "Even if it is dangerous, I need to save their lives." so he went and broke off a tree branch and got down on his knees between the two. He circulated his kai around his body to protect himself and stretched out his branch, placing it in between the staff and stick. Who could have known that this separation would not waste any energy? The two's internal energy rushed into the branch, and after meeting his circulated kai, the energies were dispersed. A strong bow cannot pierce a silk cloth. Although the northern beggar and western poison are two of the most renowned men in the world of Wulin, they had spent many days consuming and exhausting their energy. After being disturbed by his interference, the two of them fell onto the ground, their faces gray as ash, and it was hard for them to move. Yang Guo was alarmed and called out, "Father, Senior Hong, are you okay?" The two of them struggled to breath and didn't reply. Yang Guo wanted to move them into the cave to rest, but Hong Qigong lightly shook his head. Yang Guo knew that the two were severely injured and could not be moved. That night he slept between the two, afraid that they would get up in the middle of the night and fight again. The two of them couldn't even circulate their kai to recuperate. How could they fight each other? The next morning, Yang Guo saw that they looked like they were on the point of death. They looked worse than yesterday. He was alarmed and flustered. He dug up some more mountain herbs and roasted and fed it to them. On the third day, the two of them showed signs of being a little better. Yang Guo moved them into the cave, placing them on either side with him in the middle. They rested like this for several days. Once Hong Qigong regained his appetite, he started to recover. Ouyang Feng didn't say anything, but his expression was calm. Yang Guo tried to get him to talk, but he wouldn't say anything. That day, the two of them were lying on the ground facing each other when Hong Qigong suddenly called out, "Smelly toad, do you revere me now?" Ouyang Feng said, "Revere what? I still have many stances that I haven't used. Once I use them all, you'll be beaten into dust." Hong Qigong laughed and said, "What a coincidence. I too have many kung fu that I haven't used yet. Have you heard of the Beggar Clan's dog-beating stick technique?" Ouyang Feng trembled and thought, "The dog-beating stick technique sounds familiar. It seems to be extremely potent. Could it be that the old beggar knows it? But how come he hasn't used it when we've been fighting for our lives? He's probably used it already, or he doesn't know it." So he said, "What's so special about the dog-beating stick technique?" Hong Qigong was regretful. During the days when he was fighting with him, all he had to do was just use a few stances of the dog-beating stick technique, and he would definitely be able to subdue him. But he felt that Ouyang Feng was mentally unstable, so he already has an advantage over him. Using the Beggar Clan's treasured dog-beating stick technique against him wouldn't be fair. It was not the actions of a hero, but who knew that although his mind was unstable, his kung fu did not decline one bit. In the end, both of them ended up seriously injured. He wanted to use this set of skills, but he had no energy to do so. When he heard Ouyang Feng ask this question, he couldn't take it and had a thought. He signaled to Yang Guo, telling him to lower his ear, and said, "I am the Beggar Clan's previous chief. Do you know that?" Yang Guo nodded. In Chengyang Palace, he heard the Taoists talk about the famous people of the world. They said that the Beggar Clan's previous chief, the nine-fingered wondrous beggar, Hong Qigong, had supreme martial arts and was courageous, a real hero. Hong Qigong said, "I have a set of techniques that I'm going to teach you. This set of techniques is passed on to the Beggar Clan's chief only and never to outsiders. Because your godfather is belittling me with his words, I want you to perform it for him to see." Yang Guo said, "Since this skill of seniors is never passed on to outsiders, this junior will not learn it. My godfather's mind hasn't recovered yet. There is no need for senior to torment him." Yang Guo thought, "Since this set of kung fu is a treasure of the Beggar Clan, my godfather may not be able to beat it. Why should I help you to defeat my godfather?" He rejected the offer, saying that he can't learn the secret skill of the Beggar Clan. Hong Qigong saw through him and loudly said, "Smelly toad, your godson knows that you can't beat my dog-beating stick technique. He doesn't dare to demonstrate it to you." Ouyang Feng was angry and called out, "Son, I have many great skills that I haven't used yet. Why should I be afraid of him? Quickly demonstrate it for me." The two were forcing him. He had no other response but to go over to Hong Qigong's side. Hong Qigong told him to take a branch and taught him a stance of the dog-beating stick technique. "The stick beats two dogs," carefully describing it to him. Yang Guo understood immediately and demonstrated it. Ouyang Feng saw that the stick technique was indeed wondrous and powerful. It would be difficult for him to overcome it straight away. He thought for a while and taught a staff technique stance to Yang Guo. Hong Qigong gave a slight smile and said, "Fine, here's another stance." The two of them then compared martial arts with their mouths and tongues. They continued until night fell. Only 10 or so moves were exchanged, yet Yang Guo was exhausted and sweating all over. The next morning they continued, and they carried on for 3 days. By then, the 36 stances of the dog-beating stick technique were described. Though there were only 36 stances, the changes in between them had boundless ingenuity. In the end, Ouyang Feng took longer and longer to come up with a solution. But the stances that he came up with attacked and defended at the same time. The strength and power of them was excellent. When Hong Qigong saw this, he let out a sigh of respect. By the night of that day, Hong Qigong described the 36th stance, no dogs under heaven's sixth change. This was the dog-beating stick technique's final stance and final change. Once this stance was used, there would be a stick everywhere, and when the internal energy arrived, had there been 80 evil dogs, all of them would be killed at the same time. It was called no dogs under heaven. Because of this, the ingenuity and mastery of the rod technique had reached the highest echelons of martial arts. Ouyang Feng couldn't think of a reply. He spent that night tossing and turning as he pondered that stance. Before Yang Guo woke up the next morning, Ouyang Feng suddenly called out, "I've got it! I've got it! Son, use this staff stance to break his." His voice was excited and urgent at the same time. Yang Guo could hear that there was something wrong with him. He took a look and was shocked. Though Ouyang Feng was old, his internal energy was profound, so the hair on his face and head was gray-white in color. But he had exerted himself too much that night thinking. In just a night his hair became completely white, as if he'd suddenly aged 10 years. Yang Guo was sad. He wanted to ask Hong Qigong to stop the competition, but Ouyang Feng repeatedly forced him to do as he said. In the end, he could only comply. This stance was extremely complicated. Ouyang Feng repeated it and explained it until Yang Guo understood and did as he was instructed. Yang Guo was startled. He assumed that he was trying to harm his godfather. He tried to pull him away, but Hong Qigong was holding on tightly. He was unable to pull him away. He heard Hong Qigong laugh and called out, "Old poisonous animal, Ouyang Feng, you actually thought of a stance to break mine. You really are something. Good Ouyang Feng, good Ouyang Feng." After many days of fighting and a whole night of thinking, Ouyang Feng had exhausted all his strength. When he heard Hong Qigong call him, Ouyang Feng 3 times, suddenly something lit up in him. His mind was like a mirror. All the events of the past came before his very eyes. He also laughed and called out, "I'm Ouyang Feng, I'm Ouyang Feng, I'm Ouyang Feng. You're the old beggar Hong Qigong." The 2 white-haired men hugged each other and laughed. After a bout of laughter, the voices became quieter, then suddenly stopped, and the 2 of them lay motionless. Yang Guo was shocked and kept on calling out, "Father Senior." Neither replied. Yang Guo pulled Hong Qigong's arm, but as soon as he did so, the arm hung limp. He was dead. Yang Guo was startled and bent over to take a look at Ouyang Feng. He too had all lost signs of being alive. Though the 2's laughter has ended, their faces still held a smile, and the valley quietly echoed back the sounds of 2 people laughing. Northern Beggar and Western Poison had been adversaries for many years, and they hated each other. And now they ended up dead together on Mount Hua. The 2 of them were enemies when they were alive, but just before they died, they were hugging each other and laughing. All the feuds and arguments that they have had over the years were ended with a laugh. Yang Guo was shocked and sad at the same time. He had no idea what to do. He remembered that Hong Qigong pretended to be dead for 3 days and 3 nights. Could it be that the 2 of them were pretending to be dead? But judging from how they looked, it didn't appear that they were pretending. He thought, maybe after dying for a while they'll come back to life. Their martial arts are extremely good. They wouldn't die just like that. Maybe they are competing again, seeing who can fake death the longest. He guarded the 2 for 7 days and nights, and every time a day passed, a bit of his hope drained away. He saw that the 2's faces had changed color, and knew then that they had really passed away. He sobbed for a while, and then in the side of the cave, he dug 2 holes and buried the 2 extraordinary figures of the Wulin world. The weapons they used and Hong Qigong's wine gourd were buried with them. He saw that the footprints that the 2 had left when they were fighting had turned to ice. The prints were still here, yet their bodies have now been placed in the ground. Yang Guo stepped into the footprints and reminisced. He couldn't stop himself from being depressed again. He then thought about how even with their frightening abilities, in the end they were buried by someone the world despised. What is fame? What is reputation? It's just a dream that's finished. He kowtowed 8 times in front of their tombs, thinking, though Godfather was brilliant, in the end he was a level below Hong Qigong. When the dog-beating stick techniques were demonstrated, Godfather had to think for quite a while before he overcame them. If he really faced this in battle, who would allow him to carefully study it and then think of a way to counter it? After many sighs, he found a path down the mountain and left it behind. This time when he was leaving the mountain, he was trusting in his footsteps again. He didn't distinguish between east, south, west, or north. He thought that since the world is a large place, he was alone. He would wander around, and when his time comes, he'll lie on the ground somewhere and die. He hadn't been on Mount Hua for a month, yet to him it was like many years had passed. When he was ascending the mountain, he was thinking about how everyone looked down on him. He was full of hate and anger. As he descended, he felt life was like a passing cloud. If others respect him or look down on him, it's all the same. What's it have to do with him anyway? At such a young age, he was resentful of the world's customs. He won't rise in respect for the world. Within a day's time, he arrived at a wild place in Xianan. He took a look around and saw withered trees and wilted grass everywhere. The grass was fluttering in the wind. The sound of quiet hoofs could be heard in the west. Dust and smoke rose. After a short while, tens of wild horses galloped past about a mile or so in front of him. He saw the herd of horses galloping wildly, freely. Yang Guo also felt carefree and joyous. With wild lands in front of his eyes and horses galloping afar, the world was vast and had no obstructions. Just as he was feeling satisfied, he suddenly heard a horse hissing out for mercy from behind. Yang Guo turned around and saw a yellow-haired, skinny horse pulling a cart of firewood slowly along the main road. He thought that the horse must have seen the other horses galloping freely in the wild lands. It was toiling with hard work, and it hissed out as it lamented for itself. The horse was so skinny that its breastbone was sticking out. Its 4 legs had no muscle, and they were as thin as branches. Its fur was patchy, its skin was covered in scabies, and there were numerous traces of blood from wounds caused by whipping. A rude man was sitting on the cart. He disliked that the horse was going slow and whipped it incessantly. Yang Guo has suffered by others many times before. When he saw the horse suffering such punishment, it felt like he himself was suffering the whippings. His chest ached, and tears almost escaped from his eyes. He stood in the road and angrily shouted, "Hey you, why are you whipping the horse?" The rude man saw a kid in torn and old garments looking like a beggar blocking the road. He raised his whip and shouted, "Move out of the way now, don't you want your life?" As he said this, he slapped his whip on the horse's back again. Yang Guo was furious and called out, "If you hit the horse again, I'll kill you." The man laughed and lashed out at Yang Guo's head. Yang Guo stretched out his hand to take the whip and turned it around. He swung the whip and it made a tangling loop around the man's neck and pulled him down, beating him on the head and face. Although the skinny horse was ugly, it was very lively when it saw the man getting beaten. It neighed with delight and stretched out its head, rubbing Yang Guo on the leg, displaying signs of affection. Yang Guo pulled apart the cart's collar and harness, then patted the horse on the back. He pointed in the direction of the other horse's trail and said, "Go, no one's going to harm you anymore." The horse reared and neighed and galloped forward, but the horse's body was weak. He wasn't able to continue this sudden burst. It galloped for around 100 feet, then its front legs weakened and it fell onto the ground. Yang Guo couldn't bear it. He ran over and picked up the horse by its stomach and shouted, "Up!" pulling the horse back onto its feet. The man saw Yang Guo's unbelievable strength and was frightened, so frightened that he didn't want his cart of firewood. He picked himself up and ran. About half a mile away, he shouted, "There's someone strong stealing horses and firewood." Yang Guo thought this was funny. He pulled up some green grass for the horse. He saw that the horse had such an unfortunate life and couldn't help but feel linked with it. He stroked the horse's neck and said, "Horse, horse, follow me from now on." He held its rope and walked slowly to a town. He bought some barley for the horse to eat. On the second day, the horse seemed to regain its spirit, and so he rode it slowly. At first, the horse struggled along and limped. When wasn't losing its footing, it would stumble, but the further it walked, the better it got. After 7 or 8 days of having enough to eat, it regained its strength, its steps as light as if it were flying. Yang Guo couldn't speak his delight and took even more care of it. One day, Yang Guo was in an outdoor restaurant awaiting an order when the horse walked over to a table and kept neighing at a bowl of wine on the table, as if he wanted to drink the wine. Yang Guo was curious and ordered a large bowl of wine and placed it on the table, and then stroked the horse's head. The horse drank it all in one go. Its tail raised, its legs stepped. It was feeling very pleased. Yang Guo felt that this was interesting and called some more wine. The horse drank over 10 bowls one after the other. and wasn't finished. Yang Guo wanted to call for more wine, but the waiter saw he was dressed in ragged garments, and afraid that he had no money to pay, so said that they didn't have any more wine. Afterwards he got on the horse. The horse was under the influence of the wine and took large steps, galloping like crazy. The trees by the side of the road receded. It was extremely fast. When a normal spirited horse galloped, it would gallop steadily. Though this horse was fast, its body would be high and then low, jolting about very uncoordinated. If it weren't for the fact that Yang Guo possessed excellent lightness kung fu, he would not have been able to ride it. The horse also had another strange characteristic. Whenever there was another animal on the road, it would speed up and overtake it. No matter if it was a cow, horse, pony, or donkey, it would gallop past them before slowing. This proud and competitive air seems to have come about because of the suffering it has had in its life. Yang Guo thought that this 1,000-mile colt has been trapped in the hands of the villager, wasting half its life. Now that its spirit is free, it wants to gallop and fly over the lands. This behavior was similar to Yang Guo's. The man and horse were like good friends. He was bored sometimes and would play with the horse. In a few days he was happy again. He has been heading south and had arrived at the banks of Han Shui. As he rode the horse he thought about how he teased Lu Wushuang and tricked the Li Mochou master and disciple team. He couldn't stop laughing. He then remembered he didn't know where Xiao Longnu was or when they were going to meet again. He became sad and despondent. That day he traveled until noon, and on the road he kept on seeing beggars. From their appearances, most of them knew kung fu, he thought. Could it be that the matter between wifey and the beggars hasn't finished yet? Or could it be that the Beggar Clan has summoned all these people to fight with Li Mochou? I must take a look. He didn't like the Beggar Clan much, but because he admired Hong Qigong, he couldn't stop himself from feeling close to the Beggar Clan. He thought as long as the beggars don't trouble Lu Wushuang, he will give them the news that Hong Qigong had passed away. He carried on for a while, and saw the road was filling up with more and more beggars. When the beggars saw Yang Guo, they were surprised. There was no difference in the way they were dressed, but if there wasn't an urgent matter, members of the clan would not travel by horseback. Yang Guo ignored them and slowly carried on. He continued until afternoon when suddenly he heard the cries of eagles in the air. 2 white eagles flew past and descended ahead of him. He heard a beggar say, "Chief Huang is here, there's probably going to be an assembly tonight." Another beggar said, "Will Hero Guo come?" The first beggar replied, "The two are never apart." He saw Yang Guo rein in his horse, listening to their words. He gave him a glance and closed his mouth. When Yang Guo heard the names Guo Jing and Huang Rong, he was slightly alarmed, and then in his heart laughed coldly. "Earlier I lived in your home, ate your food, and you made a fool out of me. Then I was young and useless, and I suffered a lot. Right now I'm relying on the world who needs your support." He had another thought. "Why don't I pretend I have nowhere to go and have come to them for help and then see how they treat me?" He then found a quiet place and messed up his hair. Then he punched himself in the left eye. He scratched his cheek a few times. There was now a blue-green bruise on his left eye, and there were some red marks on his face. His clothes were already torn and old, but he tore them even more, making them look even more ragged. He rolled in the mud and dust a few times, and then got up on the horse that was covered in scars and skin ulcers. Indeed, he now looked like he was a person with nowhere to go and on his last legs. As soon as he finished, he limped back to the main road. He didn't ride on the horse and walked amongst the beggars. He didn't lead the horse along, the horse just followed on its own. Someone from the Beggar Clan asked whether he was on his way to attend the great feast. Yang Guo stared and didn't reply and slipped back into the crowd, walking back and forth. The group of people wound along the road and eventually came up to a large, old, and ruined temple. He saw the 2 white eagles roosting on top of a pine tree in front of the temple. One of the Wu brothers was holding a dish, while the other took a slab of meat from the dish and flung it towards the eagles. Yang Guo had seen the 2 before when they teamed up with Guo Fu to fight Li Mochou, but at that time he was too busy thinking about Guo Fu. He didn't take the 2 to mind, but now he took a closer look at the 2. He saw Wu Dunru looked intense. He was concentrating 100%. On the other hand, Wu Ziyuan was active and lively. He ran to east and darted to the west, not taking a moment's respite. Wu Dunru was wearing a purple-colored Chang silk gown. Wu Ziyuan was wearing a large blue-colored Shandong silk gown, and around their waists were tied an embroidered satin hero sash. They were indeed young heroes standing out from the crowd. Yang Guo went up to them and made a bow and stammered, "Greetings. Greetings, brothers Wu, I hope you've been well." At this time there were beggars everywhere around the temple. All their clothes were ragged, so although Yang Guo was covered in dirt, he did not look out of place in the crowd of beggars. Wu Dunru returned the favor and glanced up and down at Yang Guo. He couldn't recognize him and said, "Forgive my inexperienced eyes, what is brother's name?" Yang Guo said, "There is no need to worry about such a lowly name, little brother. Little brother wants to meet with Chief Huang." Wu Dunru thought his voice sounded slightly familiar. He was about to question him when a voice like a silver bell came from the entrance of the temple. "Big brother Wu, I asked you to buy me a soft horsewhip. Have you bought it?" Wu Dunru quickly moved Yang Guo aside and walked forward saying, "I bought it ages ago, give it a test. Does it feel right?" He fished out a horsewhip from his pocket as he said this. Yang Guo turned his head and saw a girl in a light green dress hurrying from the temple's doors. Her brows were curved, her little nose slightly raised, her face like white jade, her smile like a flower. It was Guo Fu. The adornments in her hair weren't extravagant, only a pearl was worn in her hair. The light made her look as if she was adorned with jade gem makeup. Yang Guo only gave her a glance, but he couldn't stop himself from having a feeling of inferiority. He turned his head and didn't look back. Wu Ziyuan also dashed forward, and the two brothers spent all their effort talking to her. After speaking with Guo Fu for a while, Wu Dunru remembered Yang Guo and turned around saying, "You've come because of the hero's feast." Yang Guo did not know what the hero's feast was and just answered agreeably. Wu Dunru summoned one of the beggars with his hand and said, "Take care of this friend. Tomorrow take him to De Xingyuan." After he said this, he turned his attention back to Guo Fu and ignored him. The beggar agreed and after greeting each other, asked for his name. Yang Guo told him truthfully. He was a nobody. Of course, the beggar won't have heard of his name before and wouldn't think anything of it. The beggar called himself Wang Shissen. He was a second-band Beggar Clan member. He asked, "Where has Brother Yang come from?" Yang Guo said, "From Xiaxi." Wang Shissen said, "Ah, Brother Yang is from Quanjin sect." As soon as he heard the words Quanjin sect, Yang Guo's head ached. He shook his head and said, "No, Wang Shissen, Brother Yang, you've got the hero's invitation with you." Yang Guo was startled and said, "I've just wandered around Jianghu. How can I call myself a hero? I have met your clan's chief Huang once before. I only want to see her and ask for some money to return to my home." Wang Shissen's eyebrows wrinkled, and he thought for a while and then said, "Chief Huang is receiving the heroes at the moment. I'm afraid that she won't have time to see you." Yang Guo had deliberately made himself such a sorry sight. The lower the regard the other person had for him, the prouder he'll get. He made himself more pitiful and pleaded earnestly. The members of the Beggar Clan are all people from poor environments. They have always helped those in need and distress. They would never look down on other poor people. Wang Shissen heard him speak with such grief and woe, and so said, "Little brother Yang, have a meal first. Tomorrow we'll go to De Xingyuan together. I'm your big brother. I'll go and tell the elders, who in turn will inform our chief. We'll wait and see what orders she gives. How about that?" Wang Shissen had called him Brother Yang, but now he heard that he wasn't one of the guests for the hero's feast. He was a fair few years older than him, so he changed his greeting to little brother Yang. Yang Guo thanked him repeatedly. Wang Shissen invited him into the derelict temple and bought out some rice and dishes for the guest. One of the rules of the Beggar Clan is when a Beggar Clan member arrives to celebrate a ceremony, they'll first need to get chicken, fish, beef, and lamb and leave it until it starts to rot, and gets like a soup of spoiled meat. The meaning was that they shouldn't forget their origins, but when treating guests, proper wine and dishes are bought out. As Yang Guo was eating, a flash of light shone in his eyes. He saw Guo Fu enter the hall, her face with a smile. The Wu brothers followed behind on her left and right. He heard Wu Ziyuan say, "Fine, we'll leave tonight and travel through the night to rush to De Xingyuan. I'll go and get your red horse." The three of them were too busy talking to notice Yang Guo, who was sitting on the floor eating. The three of them went to the back garden to get their bags and weapons and exited the temple. Many hoofbeats could be heard as the horses galloped away. Yang Guo planted his chopsticks into his bowl and heard the hoofbeats of the horses become distant. 100 emotions went through his mind, but was it worry or hate, anger or sorrow? The next day, Wang Shissen looked after him as they went back to the road. On the road, apart from the crowds of Beggar Clan members, there were many eminent names of Wulin. Some traveled by horseback, some traveled on foot, all heading for the hero's feast. Yang Guo didn't know what the hero's feast was or what the hero's invitation was about. He knew that Wang Shissen wouldn't dare to reveal it to him, so he pretended to be stupid and miserable. They arrived at De Xingyuan at around 7 o'clock that night. Xingyuan is an important strategic point in the Henan province. The topography of the area was divine, yet there weren't many towns and cities around. This was because the Mongolian soldiers were situated north of here. Wang Shisun led Yang Guo past a town and traveled for another 7 or 8 miles. In front of them were hundreds of Japanese scholar trees surrounding a large manor. All the heroes were heading for this manor. Building followed building inside the manor, all folding over each other, and it was hard to see how many rooms there really were. But it appeared that the manor could easily hold thousands of guests and have room to spare. Wang Shisun was just a lowly member of the Beggar Clan. He knew that their chief was occupied right now. How could he go disturb her over such a trivial matter such as borrowing traveling money? He arranged quarters for Yang Guo and then went away with his friends. Yang Guo saw that this was a very grand manor. There were many servants busy with serving the guests. He was curious and wondered who the master of the manor was and how come they had so much respect. He suddenly heard the 3 blasts from a trumpet and a musical ensemble started their music. Someone said, "The master and mistress of the manor are meeting the guests now. Let's go take a look and see who the hero is that just arrived." He saw the guest and servant move to one side. The crowd of guests also stood to either side of the hall. A man and a woman entered the hall shoulder to shoulder. They were both around 40 years of age. The male wore an embroidered gown. He had a slight mustache, exuding an air of authority and prosperity. The woman had white skin. She was courteous and gracious like an affluent mistress. The guests quietly discussed amongst themselves. Master Lu and Mistress Lu are greeting this important guest personally. Behind them was another couple. When Yang Guo saw them, his heart trembled. He became flustered. It was Guo Jing and Huang Rong. He hadn't seen them for many years. Guo Jing seems to be more serious. There was a slight smile of Huang Rong's face. Her beauty had not diminished slightly. Yang Guo thought, "So Auntie Guo is this beautiful. I never noticed it when I was younger." Guo Jing wore a coarse long gown. Huang Rong was wearing a light purple silk gown, but because she was the chief of the Beggar Clan, she could only tie the gown with pins in the places where it doesn't catch the eye, and that was it. Behind Guo Jing and Huang Rong followed Guo Fu and the Wu brothers. Right then, the hall was lit up with countless red candles. Under the candle light, the crowd could see that the males were noble and the girl was lovable and glamorous. The crowd pointed, "That is Hero Guo and that is Madame Huang, Chief Huang. Who's that girl who's cute as a flower? Are those young men their sons? No, they're their disciples." Yang Guo didn't want to meet the Guo couple in the crowd, so he hid behind a tall man and watched. 4 Taoists appeared from the direction of the music. When Yang Guo saw them, he couldn't refrain from feeling angry. The first one that entered was an old Taoist with a head of white hair. His face was purple. It was the blithe elder Hao Datung. Behind him was a gray-haired old Taoist priestess. Yang Guo has never seen her before. Behind them entered 2 middle-aged Taoists standing shoulder to shoulder. One was Zhen Zhaibing, and the other was Zhao Zhaijing. Master and Mistress Lu greeted them. They greeted the old Taoist priestess master. They received the Guo couple, Guo Fu and the Wu brothers, and led them forward. Yang Guo heard from the crowd. "That old Taoist priestess is Quanjin's sword heroine. Her name is Sun Bar. Ah, she's the Sage of Tranquility, famous throughout the northern and southern sides of the Changjian River. Yes, she is Mistress Lu's master. However, Master Lu's kung fu was not taught by her." Master Lu's first names are Guanying. His father Lu Chengfeng was a disciple of Huang Rong's father Huang Yaoshi, and so they could be regarded a generation lower than Guo Jing and Huang Rong. Lu Guanying's wife Cheng Yeajia is Sun Bar's disciple. The couple originally resided in Lake Tai's returning Echo Manor. The manor was burned down by Ouyang Feng. Lu Chengfeng was furious and influenced by his anger. He told his son that he didn't want to be on the mines of Lake Tai's bandits again, so he took his family north and resided in Xingyuan. Lu Chengfeng had now passed away. Years ago, Cheng Yeajia was in trouble. She was rescued by Guo Jing, Huang Rong, and the Beggar Clan. She had always remembered this. When the Beggar Clan sent out the hero's invitation, the Lu couple took on the task themselves and arranged the hero's feast here at their manor. Guo Jing waited for the greetings to be over and led Hao Datung and Sun Bar towards the hall to meet the gathering of heroes. Hao Datung stroked his beard as he said, "When Ma, Qiu, Liu, and Wang received Chief Huang's invitation, they wanted to come here in person, but apprentice brother Ma has not been feeling well. Apprentice brother Liu and the others are helping him to recuperate and can't leave him. They can only apologize to Chief Huang." Huang Rong said, Well said, well said. Those seniors are too polite. Though she was young, she was the leader of the world's greatest clan. Hao Datung and the others treated her with great respect. Guo Jing and Zhen Zhaibing knew each other when they were young and had met when Qiu Chuji took Zhen Zhaibing and 18 or 20 others to meet Genghis Khan. When they saw each other, both of them were delighted. The two of them entered together. Guo Jing asked about Ma Yu's illness and missed him very much. The main hall was arranged for the feast. The noise of people and the reflection of the red candles created a great atmosphere. Zhen Zhaibing looked to the east and then west. It was as if he was searching for someone in the crowd of people. Zhao Zhaijing chuckled and quietly said, "Apprentice brother Zhen, will the one named Long make an appearance here?" Zhen Zhaibing's face became red and didn't reply. Guo Jing did not know they were talking about Xiao Longnu and interrupted. "There's a hero named Long. Are they your friend?" Zhao Zhaijing said. "It's apprentice brother Zhen's friend. I dare not to make such a friend." Guo Jing saw they looked strange. There was something else going on and he didn't inquire any further. Suddenly Zhen Zhaibing spotted Yang Guo in the crowd. His whole body trembled like he was struck by lightning. He knew that if he's here, Xiao Longnu would also be here. Zhao Zhaijing followed his gaze and his face suddenly changed. He angrily shouted, "Yang Guo, it's Yang Guo, that Xiao Longnu is here as well." When Guo Jing heard the two words Yang Guo, he immediately turned around. The two haven't seen each other for years. Yang Guo has now grown up. Guo Jing would have not been able to recognize him straight away. But when he heard Zhao Zhaijing's shout, he immediately recognized who he was. He was shocked and delighted. He dashed over and took his hand and said with joy, "Guo, you're here as well. I was afraid that I was going to disturb your training, so I did not request your presence. It's great that your master has brought you here." Everyone in Quanzhen was ashamed about the incident of Yang Guo expelling himself from Chengyang Palace. No one had leaked a word about this to outsiders. Guo Jing did not know about it. At the time, he was on Peach Blossom Island. The reason that Zhao Zhaijing came to the Heroes' Feast was to tell Guo Jing about this event. He couldn't predict that he would encounter Yang Guo here. He was afraid that he had heard Yang Guo's account of the events and would take his side, but judging from his reaction, he knew that the two had just met again. His face became clear and faced the sky, saying, "How could this Taoist dream of being Master Yang's master?" Guo Jing was shocked and asked, "Why does Brother Zhao say this? The child does not listen to your teachings." Zhao Zhaijing saw that the hall was filled with heroes. If he talked about this, he would definitely get into an argument with Yang Guo. Quanzhen sect would lose face. He just chuckled coldly and didn't say a word. Guo Jing was worried about Yang Guo. He saw his eye was bruised and nose blue. His garments were torn and ragged, his body covered in mud. It showed that he had suffered a lot, and he held him to his chest. As soon as Yang Guo was held, he secretly circulated his Kai to protect his body from harm. This hug was out of love. Why would Guo Jing have any intentions to harm him? He called out to Huang Rong, "Rong, look who's here." When Huang Rong saw Yang Guo, she was shocked. She did not feel Guo Jing's delight and calmly said, "Great, you're here as well." Yang Guo lightly struggled free and said, "My body is filthy. There is no need to dirty your clothes." His sentence was said coldly, and he had a scornful tone in his voice. Guo Jing felt slightly sad and thought, "This child doesn't have a father or mother. It looks like even his master doesn't care for him." He held his hand, wanting him to sit at the same table as he. Yang Guo arranged to sit in the corner table. He didn't want to sit with such people and said coldly, "I'll sit over there. Uncle Guo, take care of your important guests." Guo Jing felt that since there were many guests here, it wasn't convenient to leave the guests alone, so he lightly patted his shoulder and made a toast at the main guests' table. After 3 rounds of wine, Huang Rong stood up and said clearly, "Tomorrow is the day for the Heroes' Feast. There are still many heroes and good men who have yet to arrive. Tonight I ask you to enjoy your appetite and don't stop drinking until you are drunk. We'll talk about the serious matters tomorrow." Meat piled up like mountains on the tables. Wine flowed like rivers. The guests either played drinking games or told stories. That day, the amount of pigs and sheep that were prepared and the amount of wine that was poured in the Lu Manor were beyond measure. After the meal, the servants led the guests to their rooms to rest. Zhao Zhaijing said a few quiet words to Hao Datung. Hao Datung nodded. Zhao Zhaijing stood up and saluted with his hands towards Guo Jing and said, "Hero Guo, the Taoist has a heavy burden to reveal. It is extremely shameful, and today I have come to apologize because of this." Guo Jing quickly returned the greeting and said, "You are too modest, apprentice brother Zhao. We'll go and speak in the study. Whatever the child has done to offend apprentice brother Zhao, I will heavily punish him to ease apprentice brother Zhao's anger." He said these words clearly, though Yang Guo was a couple of tables away. Yang Guo heard it and decided, "If he shouts at me just once, I will get up and leave and never see him again. Though my kung fu cannot compare to his, if he beats me, I will fight him with my life." Once he made this decision, he felt slightly more comfortable. He wasn't as fearful as he was when he first saw Zhao Zhaijing. He saw Guo Jing signaling to him with his hand and went over to him and followed behind him. Guo Fu and the Wu brothers were drinking wine at another table. She didn't know who Yang Guo was, but after being told the news by Guo Jing and Huang Rong, she remembered that it was the boy who they played with when they were younger on Peach Blossom Island. They had been separated for a long time. Young people change their appearances the most, and after a few months great changes can be seen, let alone a few years. The fact that Yang Guo had made himself look in such a sorry state, and then hiding himself in the crowd, of course Guo Fu would not know who he was. When she saw Yang Guo had returned, she couldn't help herself from thinking. She remembered how they had a little argument when they were small on the island. Would he still be angry at this event? She saw him in such a weary state, compared with the graceful and the distinguished look of the Wu brothers. They were poles apart. She couldn't help but feel some pity for him and said to the Wu Dunru, "Father sent him to Quanjin to learn martial arts. I wonder how his skills are compared to ours." Before Wu Dunru could reply, Wu Ziyuan interrupted, "Master's skills are unequaled. How could he compete with us?" Guo Fu nodded. "His foundation was bad before. It would be difficult for him to make any progress. How did he end up in such a state?" Wu Ziyuan said. "Those old Taoists stared at him as if they wanted to swallow him whole. That kid has such a bad temper. He must have caused a major incident." The three of them talked quietly for a while, and then they heard Guo Jing inviting Hao Da-tung and the others to the study. He said he was going to punish Yang Guo heavily. She was curious and said, "Quick, we'll go and hide ourselves in the study first and listen to what they are talking about." Wu Dunru was worried about being punished by their master if they found out and didn't reply. Wu Ziyuan agreed and went ahead. Guo Fu's right leg stopped. A slightly angry expression came across her face and she said to Wu Dunru, "Don't listen to me then." Wu Du-run saw her face showed signs of anger, but her brows, eyes, and smile were still exuding their beauty. His heart jumped and he couldn't disobey and followed her quickly. As soon as they hid behind the bookshelf, Guo Jing and Huang Rong led Hao Da-tung and the others to the study, and they sat down. Yang Guo followed and stood to one side. Guo Jing said, "Guo, just sit." Yang Guo shook his head and said, "I won't sit." Even in the presence of 6 great fighters of the Wulin world, he was still bold, but he couldn't help but feel a little bit restless. Guo Jing had always treated Yang Guo as his own son. He was also extremely respectful of the Quanjin 7 masters. He thought that it wasn't necessary to ask about the rights and wrongs of what happened. It must be the junior's fault. He put on a face and said to Yang Guo, "You are very bold. How dare you not greet your master? Quick, kowtow to your martial grandmasters, your master, and your martial uncle to apologize." The relationship between an emperor and his subjects, a father and son, a master and disciple were all very significant. When a subject is called upon by an emperor to die, they dare not stay alive. If the father wants the son to perish, the son must do so. The same can be said for the Wulin relationship between master and disciple. A hint of disobedience is not allowed. Guo Jing reprimanded him this way because he pitied him for the suffering he has had alone. His tone was very gentle and soft. Had it been someone else, he would have shouted "bastard," "animal" long ago and struck him with his fists on the head and face. Zhao Zhaijing stood up and chuckled. "How can I be Master Yang's master? Hero Guo, there is no need for you to ridicule me. Our Quanjin sect has done nothing to offend Hero Guo. Why is it necessary to insult me in public? Master Yang, this little Taoist will kowtow to apologize to the senior. It was my fault for being blind. I didn't recognize such a hero and good man." Zhao Zhaijing said loudly, "How can I, Zhao Zhaijing, dare to be someone's master with my lowly skills? Won't that just make the heroes and good men of the world laugh their heads off? How does that make me look?" Huang Rong's eyebrows wrinkled. She was resentful. She and the Quanjin sect weren't the greatest of friends. Years ago, they used the Big Dipper formation against her father. Qiu Chuji also tried to arrange for Mu Niansai to be Guo Jing's bride. Though these events happened long ago, the animosity had disappeared. But this outburst by Zhao Zhaijing in front of her may have been a bit too impolite. Though both Hao Da-tung and Sun Bayer felt that it was hard to blame Zhao Zhaijing for getting so angry, but the way he was acting was not how a Taoist should act. Sun Bu'er said, Zhao Zhaijing, explain everything to Hero Guo and Chief Huang. Look at the way you're acting and think how it looks. We are Taoists. What kind of Taoism have we been studying? Though Sun Bu'er was a woman, she was very stern. Her juniors all feared her. When Zhao Zhaijing heard her speak slowly, he didn't dare to make any more outbursts and said, Yes, yes. He returned to his seat. Guo Jing said, Guo, look how your master treats his seniors with such respect. Why don't you follow his example? Zhao Zhaijing wanted to say, I'm not his master, but he took a look at Sun Bu'er and managed to restrain himself. But who knew that Yang Guo would say loudly, He's not my master? When he said this, Guo Jing and Huang Rong were both extremely shocked. Guo Fu and the Wu brothers who were hiding behind the bookshelf were also extremely surprised. The master-disciple relationship was very significant in the world of Wulin. There's a saying, a master for one day, a father for life. Guo Jing was brought up the Jiangnan Seven Freaks and was taught martial arts by Hang Qigong. He was very grateful to his masters. Ever since he was young, he believed that the ways of his masters were right and proper. How would he know that Yang Guo would dismiss his master in public and say such treasonous and heretical things? He got up and pointed at Yang Guo. His voice trembled as he said, What did you say? He wouldn't scold anyone, but his face went green. He was very angry. Huang Rong had very rarely seen him get so angry. She whispered to him, Brother Jing, that child has always been bad. There is no need to get angry over him. Yang Guo was actually afraid, but when he saw his loving Uncle Guo change his face to such an angry expression, he made a decision and thought, Nothing is greater than death, and the worst that will happen is that you people will kill me. So he said clearly, My character has always been bad, but I have never begged you to teach me martial arts. You two are eminent people of the Wulin world. Why was it necessary for you to use such a crafty plan to harm a child who doesn't have a mother or father? When he said, who doesn't have a mother or father, he pitied himself. His eyes became slightly red, but he bit down on his lips and thought, Even I die today, I won't shed a single tear. Guo Jing angrily said, Your Auntie Guo and master taught you martial arts, sincerely, because of the friendship between me and your deceased father. Who used a crafty plan? Who wants to harm you? He wasn't the most articulate. He stuttered even more now that he is angry. Yang Guo saw how impatient he was and spoke even slower. Uncle Guo has treated me very well. I will never forget this. Huang Rong slowly said, Auntie Guo has wronged you. If you want to remember this for the rest of your life, that's up to you. At this stage, he might as well boldly go on. He said, Auntie Guo has not treated me badly, nor has she wronged me. You said you were going to teach me martial arts. In reality, you taught me to study. You didn't teach me an ounce of kung fu. Studying is a good thing. This nephew has learned a few more words and heard you speak about the stories of the past. But those old Taoists, he pointed to Hao Datung and Zhao Zhaijing and said furiously, There will be a day when I will take my revenge. Guo Jing was shocked and quickly asked, What revenge? What happened? Yang Guo said, The one named Zhao calls himself my master. He didn't teach me any martial arts, fine, but he ordered many young Taoists to beat me up. Auntie Guo didn't teach me martial arts and the Quanjin sect didn't teach me martial arts. I could only take the beatings. The one named Hao saw that there was a grandma that loved me, and he killed her. The rotten Taoist named Hao, speak, isn't this the truth? When he remembered how Grandma's son died for him, he ground his teeth and wanted to leap over to Hao Datung and kill him. Hao Datung was an eminent Taoist of Quanjin. He had learned martial arts, and he had reached a deep level in both areas. He accidentally killed Grandma's son, and in all these years he hadn't had a moment's peace. This was the most hateful thing he had done in his life. The 7 masters of Quanjin had killed countless people in their lives, but all the people they had killed were scoundrels, traitors, and crooks. They had never harmed an innocent. Now he heard Yang Guo blaming him in front of everyone. He couldn't stop his face from turning gray. The events of that day when he made Grandma's son throw up blood with his palm flashed in front of his eyes. He didn't have a weapon, so he stretched out his left hand and took a long sword from Zhao Zhaijing's waist. Everyone thought that he wanted to stab Yang Guo with the sword. Guo Jing took a step forward to protect Yang Guo, but who could have known that he would turn the long sword around with the handle facing Yang Guo and say, Correct. I killed the wrong person. Take revenge for Grandma's son. I won't retaliate. When everyone saw him do this, they were surprised. Guo Jing was afraid that Yang Guo would take the sword and harm him, so he called out, Guo, don't be impolite. Yang Guo knew that he wouldn't be able to avenge Grandma's son in front of Guo Jing and Huang Rong. He said coldly, You know that Uncle Guo won't let me attack, so why are you pretending to be so gracious? If you really want me to kill you, then why don't you hand me over the sword in a place where there isn't anyone about? Hao Datung was a senior of Wulin. He was made speechless by the words of this young man. He couldn't hand over the long sword or take it back. He circulated his kai through his hands and forced the sword to snap in half. He flung the sword on the floor and gave a long sigh. He said, "It's finished, it's finished." He exited the study. Guo Jing wanted to persuade him to remain behind, but his head did not turn back. Yang Guo said, "When Uncle Guo went up Mount Zhongnan, he defeated hundreds of Taoists without reply. Even if Ma, Qiu, Liu, Wang, and the others didn't mind, would the others just forget about it? They couldn't do anything to Uncle Guo, but could it be that they wouldn't vent their anger on a child like me? They wished they could kill me. Why would they teach me martial arts? These few years I have experienced days where there was no light. The fact that today I have the chance to see Uncle Guo again is all down to heaven opening its eyes." Those words did not mention the fact that he expelled himself from Quanjin and pushed all the blame on Guo Jing. He said he had endured days where there was no light. This wasn't a lie exactly. When he was living in the tomb, he didn't see much light or day. When Guo Jing heard these words, he couldn't stop his pity and compassion from rising. Zhao Zhaijing saw that Guo Jing more or less believed him and became anxious. He said, You bastard talking such crap. The name of Quanjin has been tarnished by Guo Jing believed that what Yang Guo said was the truth. Huang Rong's face was not moved. She saw Yang Guo's eyes sparkled, and he had a clever expression on his face. She thought, "This child is extremely crafty. There must be a lie somewhere," she said. "From what you said, you don't know any martial arts. All these years in Quanjin were wasted." As she asked these questions, she slowly got up. She suddenly stretched out her left hand and put a palm towards the crown of his head. The fingers of the palm was aiming for the head's 100 meetings pressure point. The base of the palm was heading for the rising star pressure point that was an inch from the hairline. These two main pressure points were fatal. If there was a heavy blow to these places, the person would die. There would be no saving them. Guo Jing was shocked and he called out, "Wronger!" But Huang Rong was extremely fast. This palm was her family's, descending brave divine sword palm. There was no warning. As soon as the hand moved, the palm arrived. If Guo Jing wanted to save him, it was too late. Yang Guo moved back slightly and wanted to avoid it, but with Huang Rong's kung fu, now that she had attacked, just how would he dodge it? He saw the palm going towards his head. Yang Guo was shocked. He quickly stretched out his arm to react, but his mind had a quick thought. His right arm moved slightly and then hung down. Someone such as Guo Jing, who was greatly skilled but slow in thought, would not understand what was happening. They would quickly repel this attack. But Yang Guo was extremely quick. He immediately understood. Auntie Guo was trying to test my kung fu. If I avoid this palm, then it will show that I've been lying. He saw Huang Rong's attack was fatal. If she wasn't testing out his kung fu and he himself didn't react, wouldn't that mean he will have lost his life in vain? In a flash, he fired up his stubborn nature and thought, "Fine, if I die, then I die." Though his kung fu may not be as good as Huang Rong's, if he wanted to stretch out his hand and repel her palm, it wouldn't be hard, but now he risked his life and didn't move his arms. Indeed, Huang Rong was testing his kung fu with this stance. As soon as the palm reached his head, she didn't increase her strength. She saw a frightened and shocked expression on his face. He didn't stretch out his hand to repel this attack, and he didn't secretly circulate his kai to protect his vital pressure points, showing he didn't know an ounce of martial arts. She smiled and said, "I didn't teach you kung fu because I wanted what was best for you. It looks like the Taoists of Quanjin had the same thought as me." She returned to her seat and quietly said to Guo Jing, "He really hasn't learned any of the Quanjin's martial arts." As soon as she said this, her mind secretly called out, "Yo, something's wrong. I almost fell for his lie." She remembered how, when he was little, he used the toad stance to attack Wu Dunru. He had some kung fu foundation. Even if he hasn't made an inch of progress but knew she was about to strike with her palm, he would definitely block the attack. She thought, young man, you're too clever. If you scrambled and waved your hands in a frantic state to block my attack, I might have believed your lie. But there is one point that doesn't make sense in your charade. You've left a flaw." She didn't reveal this, and thought that she would watch him and see what other schemes he'll come up with. She looked at Zhao Zhaijing and then at Yang Guo, and she just smiled slightly. Zhao Zhaijing saw Huang Rong test out a stance on Yang Guo, who didn't fight back. He knew that Yang Guo had managed to conceal his kung fu from her, displaying even more signs that he was in the wrong. His anger erupted and said loudly, That bastard is very crafty. If Chief Huang couldn't find anything, then let me try. He went over to Yang Guo and pointed to his nose and said, "Little bastard, you really don't know any martial arts. If you don't defend, I will not hold back. If you want to live or die, it's up to you." He knew that Yang Guo's kung fu was above his, but under his fatal attacks, there would be no other option for him but to reveal the truth. If he still kept up this charade, he might as well take his life. The worst that would happen is he will lose the Guo's couple's friendship and be heavily punished by his sex leader. Fury filled his chest, hate filled his guts, he thought. You knew that Chief Huang wouldn't harm your life, that's why you were so bold. You acted very well. Let's see if you still have the guts to keep up the charade. His sleeve waved, he was about to attack. Guo Jing called out, "Please wait." He was afraid that he would harm Yang Guo's life and wanted to intervene. Huang Rong tugged his sleeve and quietly said, "Don't do anything." She knew that Zhao Zhaijing was extremely angry, his attacks would not be light, and Yang Guo had no way to avoid his attacks by mere luck. When he defends, the truth will come out. How would Guo Jing know that there are so many other things going on here? He was worried but knew that his wife's plans had never failed before. He didn't say anything else and just took one step forward. If there was a real danger, he would still be able to make a rescue. Zhao Zhaijing said to Sun Bo and Zhen Zhaibing, "Martial uncle Sun, apprentice brother Zhen, that bastard is pretending that he doesn't know martial arts. I am forced with no other option but to test him myself. If he keeps it up to the end and I kill him, please be a witness for me in front of our leader, Martial Uncle Q and my master." Sun Bo knew what had happened with the incident of Yang Guo expelling himself from the Quanjin sect. She saw him using his wits and craft to make sure Zhao Zhaijing could not back down and make sure it was Quanjin sect who was in the wrong. She hoped Zhao Zhaijing would force him to use his martial arts and chuckled. That disobedient disciple and traitor to our Quanjin sect. Killing him wouldn't be anything serious. She is an eminent Taoist, how could she tell someone to kill? Those words were actually meant to scare Yang Guo, wanting him to stop pretending. Zhao Zhaijing had his martial uncle's support and was even more daring. He raised his right foot and aimed for Yang Guo's abdomen. The stance flying past heaven's mountains had softness within its hardness. In the Yang there was yin, it was a really lethal stance. Though this kick was very powerful, it wasn't very profound. It was a stance that is taught when one first enters the Quanjin sect. It was a very ordinary stance when it is used, and as long as someone knows a little kung fu, they would be able to neutralize it. On the first day of practicing martial arts, the disciples of Quanjin would first learn the stance of flying past heaven's mountains, and then force of the retreating horse. This was the stance to avoid the stance of flying past heaven's mountains. One attack, one defense, this was the most basic set of kung fu. By using this stance, he wanted Guo Jing and Huang Rong to understand one thing. Even if I did not teach him advanced martial arts, could it be that I didn't even teach him the basic kung fu of our sect's very first lesson? When Yang Guo saw the kick come, he did not use the force of the retreating horse. His left hand hung down, protecting his abdomen. Zhao Zhaijing saw that he was so bold that he didn't even move or dodge. He didn't hold back on his kick and kicked straight across. When the tip of his foot was about 3 inches away from Yang Guo's abdomen, he saw in the moonlight Yang Guo's left thumb slightly sticking out, aiming for his right foot's ankle, large opening, pressure point. If he kicked out with power, before the tip of the foot had reached the abdomen, his pressure point will be sealed first. The opponent wouldn't actually seal the pressure point themselves. As the foot strikes his finger, it will be struck on the pressure point, sealing it in the process. He was the best fighter of Quanjin's 3rd generation. In the midst of danger, he quickly changed his stance. He turned and changed the direction of the kick, his right leg passing Yang Guo's side. At least he was able to avoid the trap, but his body was off balance, and his face turned red. Guo Jing and Huang Rong were behind Yang Guo and didn't see his thumb. They thought it was because Zhao Zhaijing was holding back. At the very last second, he changed his stance. But Sun Bo and Zhen Zhaibing could see this clearly. Zhen Zhaibing didn't say a word. Sun Bo stood up and shouted, "Little punk, very crafty." Zhao Zhaijing's left palm hung in the air, his right palm aimed to chop across Yang Guo's left cheek. This stance of purple lightning striking through words was a refined stance of advanced martial arts. As the palm arrives halfway, the direction suddenly changes. Originally aimed to the left cheek, it now was aiming to chop down on his neck on the right side. How could he know that Yang Guo has learned the Jade Heart Manual to a very fluent state? The manual was the black star of Quanjin's Kung Fu. Every lethal fist techniques and palm stances that Wang Qingyang invented were all defeated ingeniously by Lin Kaying years ago. When Yang Guo saw his left palm hanging in the air, he quickly covered his head with his arms as if he was scared. His left index finger hit itself by his neck on the right side, but because he covered it with his right palm, Zhao Zhaijing had no way to see it. As soon as the palm arrives, Yang Guo's right hand slanted slightly. A bow sound was heard as the finger sealed the backstream pressure point on Zhao Zhaijing's palm. Once again, it was Zhao Zhaijing himself who forced his own pressure point to be sealed by hitting it on his finger. Yang Guo knew what the opponent would do and prepared his finger in place. Once Zhao Zhaijing's pressure point on his palm was sealed, his arm immediately went numb. He knew he had fallen into his trap. He was furious and his left leg came sweeping out. Yang Guo called out, "Oh no!" He bent his left arm and placed his elbow 2.5 inches above his waist. When Zhao Zhaijing's left leg came, the elbow struck his ankles, reflecting sea and great river pressure points. This kick came out of fury. It was kicked with great strength. The pressure points were severely struck. His left leg went numb and he kneeled down on the floor. Sun Bu'er saw that her martial nephew was being embarrassed. She stretched out her left arm and pulled him up with her hand and then pushed his back a few times, unsealing his pressure points. Yang Guo quickly backed away. He saw that she unsealed Zhao Zhaijing's pressure points with ease. He knew that her martial arts were far superior Zhao Zhaijing's. Yang Guo was afraid of her and kept a distance between himself and Sun Bu'er. Though she had been practicing Taoism for many years, she was still very stubborn and strong. She saw that his kung fu was extremely crafty. It looked like that it was their sect's black star. If she fought herself, she might not be able to win, so she called out, "Let's go!" She then said goodbye to Guo Jing and Huang Rong. Her sleeve swept out and she leapt out of the study through the window and then jumped up onto the roof. Zhen Zhaibing had seemed to be out of it all this time. He wanted to tell Guo Jing and Huang Rong what happened when Zhao Zhaijing angrily shouted, "What more is there to talk about?" He pulled on his sleeve, and the two of them leapt out of the window and then followed Sun Bu'er. With Guo Jing's and Huang Rong's awareness, of course they knew that Zhao Zhaijing's pressure points had been sealed. But Yang Guo had not stretched out his finger. Could it be that an eminent person was secretly helping him? Guo Jing immediately went over to the window to take a look. Where was the person? Guo Jing thought that as Zhao Zhaijing was about to kill him, he couldn't bear to, and so pretended to have his pressure points sealed and left in the confusion. However, Huang Rong could see this was the doing of Yang Guo. Firstly, because she was behind him and couldn't see his elbow, and secondly, she was not aware of the existence of a martial art skill such as the Jade Heart Manual. This enabled the prediction of the enemy's reaction and countered the skills of Quanjin without reply. She wasn't able to understand exactly what had happened. She wouldn't act like Guo Jing and view others with the heart of a gentleman. When she saw the 4 Quanjin Taoists sweeping their sleeves and leaving, it was very impolite. Secretly, she was furious. She pondered and turned around to see Guo Fu's dark green shoes sticking out from under the bookshelf. She immediately called out, "Far, what are you doing here?" Guo Fu laughed and came out with a silly look on her face and said, "Me and the Wu brothers are looking for a book to read." Huang Rong knows that the 3 of them have never been interested in books. Why would they have suddenly taken an interest today? One look at her daughter's face, and she knew that they must sneaked in earlier to hide so they can eavesdrop on what was happening. As she was about to tell them off, a Beggar Clan member came with news of a guest arriving. She took a look at Yang Guo, and then she and Guo Jing went out to meet the guest. Guo Jing said to the Wu brothers, "Brother Yang is a childhood friend of yours, take good care of him." The Wu brothers had never been friendly with Yang Guo. Right now they looked at the state that he was in. They knew that he hadn't learned any martial arts at the Quanjin sect and was called bastard, animal by his master. They looked down on him even more. They summoned a servant and told him to take care of Yang Guo. However, Guo Fu was very curious about Yang Guo. She asked, "Brother Yang, why doesn't your master want you?" Yang Guo said, "There are many reasons. I'm dumb and lazy. I have a bad temper, and I don't know how to treat the relatives of my master well. Buying horse whips and donkey whips and what-nots." When the Wu brothers heard this, their faces changed. Wu Ziyuan was the first who couldn't control himself anymore and shouted, "What did you say?" Yang Guo said, "I said I'm useless, I don't know how to please my master." Guo Fu smiled captivatingly and said, "Your master is a Taoist, how would he have a daughter?" Yang Guo saw her smile. It was as if a flower suddenly blossomed bright. Beautiful and glamorous, unconsciously his heart jumped. His face went red and he turned his head away. Guo Fu had managed to control the Wu brothers and could mess them around long ago. Now she saw Yang Guo turn his head away and knew that he was moved by her beauty. She was very proud of herself. Yang Guo looked to the west and saw a couplet on the wall. The first line said, "The image of peach blossoms descending with the divine flying sword." The second line was, "The jade sea brings new waves according the jade flute." Yang Guo has seen this couplet in the practicing sword pavilion on Peach Blossom Island. He knew that it was Huang Yaoshi who wrote it, but underneath this couplet was signed, "The 5 useless people who were ill-fated." Compared to the 3 people in front of him, he was only a few years older, but as he read and studied the writing, it was as if he was 10 years older. When he saw the words, "the 5 useless people," he remembered about himself, how all those close to him had either died or have gone away. He wandered the world alone. There was no difference between himself and a useless person. The pride he felt just now forcing Zhao Zhaijing to scamper away disappeared. A sad, lamenting feeling filled his heart. He couldn't stop himself from dropping his head and pitying himself. Guo Fu softly said, "Brother Yang, go and rest. I'll come and speak with you tomorrow." Yang Guo calmly replied, "Fine." He followed the servant out of the study and heard Guo Fu flare up at the Wu brothers. "I want to speak with him. Can you two stop me? His kung fu is not good. I'll ask father to teach him." Great banquet for heroes. The next morning, while Yang Guo was eating breakfast in the hall, Guo Fu signaled him to the courtyard. The Wu brothers were at the side looking a bit troubled. Yang Guo was amused and went over to Guo Fu and asked, "You're looking for me?" Guo Fu laughed and said, "Yes, come with me outside. I want to ask what you've done in the last few years." Yang Guo exhaled deeply, thinking that it wasn't easy to explain. Even if he spoke for 3 days and nights, he would not have finished, and how could he reveal these things to her? The two of them walked shoulder to the main door. Yang Guo slightly turned his head and saw the 2 Wu brothers following. Guo Fu had noticed a long time ago and pretended that she didn't see them and talked to Yang Guo. Yang Guo picked some insignificant events to talk about. He pushed and pulled, making Guo Fu laugh. She knew that Yang Guo was keeping things from her, but she still felt amused by his words. The two slowly walked to a willow tree. Suddenly they heard a neigh. A skinny and scabby horse came hurrying over to Yang Guo, rubbing against him in an affectionate manner. When the Wu brothers saw such an ugly horse, they couldn't hold themselves back and burst out laughing. They went over to the 2. Wu Ziyuan laughed and said, "That precious horse is very special. Only someone with your ability could one find a horse like that." "When are you going to find me one like that?" Wu Dunru said seriously. "That is a Dashi Guo's, great master Guo's, priceless treasure. How could you buy it?" Guo Fu looked at Yang Guo and then at the ugly horse. When she saw the two had the same dirty and pitiful appearance, she couldn't resist laughing. Yang Guo laughed and said, "I'm ugly, my horse is ugly, we're a match. The horses that the Wu brothers ride must be very spirited horses." Wu Ziyuan said, "The horses that we ride are only a bit better than yours. Sister Fu's red horse, now that is a precious horse. You've seen it before when you were on Peach Blossom Island." Yang Guo said, "So Uncle Guo gave the red horse to a girl." The 4 of them chatted as they walked. Guo Fu suddenly pointed to the west and said, "Look, Mother's teaching stick techniques again." Yang Guo turned his head and saw Huang Rong with an old beggar walking towards the mountainside, the 2 of them holding a stick in their hands. Wu Ziyuan said, "Elder Lu is so dumb. He's been practicing the dog-beating stick technique for so long, but he still hasn't managed to learn it." When Yang Guo heard the words dog-beating stick technique, his heart trembled, but he didn't show any signs of it. He turned around and looked away, pretending to appreciate the scenery. He heard Guo Fu say, "The dog-beating stick technique is the treasure of the Beggar Clan. My mother said that the mastery and ingenuity of the stances are unbeatable. It has the most powerful stances in the world of weapons. You can't just learn it in 10 days or a fortnight. You said he's dumb. Are you very clever?" Wu Dunru sighed and said, "It's a pity that apart from the chief of the Beggar Clan, no one is allowed to learn it." Guo Fu said, "If you become the chief of the Beggar Clan in the future, Chief Lu will impart it to you. Even my father does not know this skill. There's no need to cry." Wu Dunru said, "How can I be the chief of the Beggar Clan? Sister Fu, why did Master's wife select Elder Lu to replace her?" Guo Fu said, "Over the last few years, my mother just held the title. The running of the clan is all done by Elder Lu Yaojiao. All the many bothersome things that go on in the clan give my mother a headache. She said, why is it necessary to have the name and not do anything? So why not pass the position on to Elder Lu and make it official? Once Elder Lu learns the dog-beating stick technique, My mother will pass on the position to him officially. Wu Ziyuan said, Sister Fu, how exactly do you use the dog-beating stick technique? Have you seen it before? Guo Fu said, I haven't seen it. I have seen it. She picked up a branch off the ground and lightly attacked his shoulder and laughed. It's like this. Wu Ziyuan called out, Fine, just see if I'll let you go now you've called me a dog. He stretched out his hand to grab her. Guo Fu laughed and jumped away. Wu Ziyuan chased after her. The two ran around a few times and returned to their original places. Guo Fu laughed and said, Little brother Wu, don't get angry, I've got an idea. Wu Ziyuan said, Fine, tell me. Guo Fu said, We'll watch in secret, we can see exactly how special the dog-beating technique is. Wu Ziyuan clapped his hand in agreement. But Wu Dunru shook his head and said, If Master's wife finds out we are secretly trying to learn the skill, she will lecture us severely. After this put down, he just smiled slightly. Guo Fu continued, Last night when we were in the study eavesdropping, did my mother shout at anyone, You're just a little chicken. Little brother Wu, let's go. Wu Dunru said, Fine, fine, your reasoning does make some sense. I'll go with you. Guo Fu said, Is it possible that you don't want to watch one of the world's best skills? It doesn't matter if you don't go. Once I've learned it, I'll come back and beat you with it. As she said this, she raised her stick and waved it at him. The three of them had heard about the dog-beating stick technique a long time ago and were fascinated by it, but they had never seen what it looked like. Gu Jing once discussed martial arts with them. He told them how years ago on Mount Jun Huang Rong used the technique at the Beggar Clan's gathering to beat everyone there, and claimed the position of the chief of the Beggar Clan. The three of them listened, enchanted. Right now Guo Fu was encouraging them to take a look, though Wu Dunru spoke out against it. In his heart there wasn't anything he wanted to do more. He pretended to be coerced into it, and all he's doing is listening to Guo Fu's suggestion. If they are found out, then his master's wife can't blame him. Guo Fu said, Brother Yang, you come as well. Yang Guo was gazing at the faraway mountains as if he was absorbed in thought and didn't hear what they said. Guo Fu called out again, and Yang Guo turned his head around. His face looked lost. He asked, Fine, fine, follow you where? Guo Fu said, Don't ask, just follow me. Wu Dunru said, Sister Fu, why do you want him to come? He won't understand. His dumb brain is going to make some noise. How can Master's wife not notice? Guo Fu said, Relax, I'll take care of him. You two go first. Brother Yang and I will follow. The four of us will make too much noise with our footsteps. The Wu brothers didn't want to, but they knew they couldn't defy Guo Fu's orders. The two of them walked ahead discontentedly. Guo Fu called out, We'll hide in a large tree nearby first. My mother will not notice if we are careful and don't make any noise. The Wu brothers nodded in reply and quickened their steps. Guo Fu glanced at Yang Guo and saw his clothes were extremely ragged and torn. She said, When we get back, I'll get Mother to buy you some new clothes. Once you've changed, you won't be as ugly. Yang Guo shook his head and said, I was born ugly. Even if I change clothes and tidy myself up, I'll still be ugly. Guo Fu said fine and didn't take it to mind. She glanced at the backs of the Wu brothers and gave out a light sigh. Yang Guo said, Why are you sighing? Guo Fu said, My mind is really troubled, you wouldn't understand. Yang Guo saw a delicate redness on her face, her eyebrows slightly wrinkled. She really was an extremely beautiful girl. Compared to Lu Wushuang, Wan Yinping, and Yelu Yan, she was more beautiful than they. His heart was moved slightly and said, I know why you are so troubled. Guo Fu said, That's strange, how would you know? You really are talking rubbish. Yang Guo said, Fine, if I guess correctly, you can't deny it. Guo Fu placed her little white and tender finger against her right cheek. Her pupils glimmered, a smile was on her lips and said, Fine, take a guess. Yang Guo said, It's not simple. The Wu brothers both like you, they both try to please you, and it's hard for you to give up one of them. After hearing this, Guo Fu's heart raced. He knows about this, the Wu brothers know about this, her parents know about this, and even Qi Zhen-yi knows about this. But it was hard for anyone to mention it. Everyone knew in their hearts, but no one mentioned a word about it. Now, Yang Guo suddenly mentioned this matter. She couldn't stop her face from going red. She was happy but sad. She wanted to laugh but also wanted to cry. Droplets of tears rolled from her eyes. Yang Guo said, You're thinking Big Brother Wu is courteous and reliable. Little Brother Wu can keep me entertained. The two of them are both handsome. Their martial arts are excellent, and they treat me with respect and listen to me. The elder has his good points. The younger has his strong points. I'm just one person, how can I marry two men? Guo Fu listened to him, startled. After she heard his last sentence, she said, Your mouth is full of rubbish. Who wants to pay attention to what you say? From her reaction, Yang Guo knew he had guessed correctly. He quietly repeated, "I'm just one person, how can I marry two men?" After repeating it a few times, Guo Fu still seemed to have something on her mind. It was as if she didn't hear him. After a while she said, "Brother Yang, tell me, who do you think the better of the brothers?" She asked this quite suddenly. Though she and Yang Guo were childhood friends, there was still some animosity between the two even though they not seen each other for a long time. Now that they're grown up, how can she reveal such things to him? Yang Guo is a lively person. As long as you don't get on the wrong side of him, he will joke with you, laugh with you. In a flash, he will make you feel as if you were in a spring breeze, as if you were drinking a beautiful wine. Anyway, Guo Fu had gone over this hundreds and thousands of times in her mind. She felt that both of them had their good points. When it came to playing around and joking, she got on with Wu Ziyuan very well. But when it came to doing something serious, Wu Dunru was much better. She was a girl going through puberty. She would alternate from being angry with them or be pleased with them. She made the brothers fall in love with her. In her heart, she was really troubled. She didn't know who to treat better. As she and Yang Guo raised this point, she couldn't help herself but ask this question. Yang Guo laughed and said, "I don't think either of them is good." Guo Fu was startled and asked, "Why?" Yang Guo laughed and said, "If those two are good, then what chance have I, Yang Guo, got?" He had been used to joking around with Lu Wushuang on the road, and he didn't mean what he just said. He was just teasing her when he said it. Guo Fu was stunned. She was a girl who was used to being pampered and treated well. No one has ever said half an offensive word to her. Right now, she didn't know whether or not to be angry. She put on serious face and said, "If you don't want to say, fine, who wants to joke with you? Let's go." As she said this, she utilized her lightness kung fu and hurried along the small path to the mountainside. Yang Guo felt there was no point to this and thought, "Why am I mixing with these three? I'd rather be far away and be on my own." He turned around and slowly walked away, thinking, "The Wu brothers think that girl is a goddess. They're afraid that she won't marry them. If they really marry her and spend every day with such a pretty yet bullying girl, they will definitely experience more pain than joy, huh? Crazy people like them are very funny." Guo Fu hurried for a while and assumed that Yang Guo would go after her and apologize. But after stopping for a while, there was no trace of Yang Guo. She had a thought and said, "That person does not know martial arts. Of course he won't be able to catch up." She turned around and returned to see that he had actually gone in the opposite direction. She thought this was strange and went over to Yang Guo. She asked, "Why aren't you coming?" Yang Guo said, "Miss Guo, please tell your parents that I've gone." Guo Fu was shocked and said, "You're fine, so why are you leaving?" Yang Guo gave a dull laugh and said, "There's no reason. Originally I came here for no real reason, and now that I've been here I feel I should go." Guo Fu has always liked crowded atmospheres. Although she didn't think very highly of Yang Guo, listening to him joking felt fresher and newer than listening to the Wu brothers. She really didn't want him to leave. She said, "Brother Yang, we haven't seen each other a long time. I have many things to say to you. Anyway, tonight is the Heroes' Feast. All the heroes from all over the world will be gathering here. Why don't you want to experience this?" Yang Guo said, "I'm not a hero if I'm actually there. Won't I just become an object of ridicule in front of all the heroes?" Guo Fu said, "That makes sense." She pondered for a while and said, "There are many people in the Lu Manor who don't know martial arts. Just eat and drink with the servants." When Yang heard this, he was very angry. He thought, "Little bitch, you class me with nobodies." His face didn't show any signs of anger. He laughed and said, "That's a pretty good idea." He had wanted to leave, but now had a change of heart. He decided he was going to do something that would embarrass and disgrace her. Guo Fu was used to being pampered and cared for. She wasn't wise and didn't understand worldly matters. She didn't have any ill intent in her words and didn't know that she had deeply offended someone. She saw that Yang Guo had changed his mind. She laughed and said, "Let's go. If we're late and Mother gets there first, we won't be able to peek." She hurried ahead with Yang Guo following behind. He appeared out of breath and his footsteps seemed heavy, showing that he was extremely clumsy and inept. They easily arrived in time at the place where Huang Rong normally taught Lu Yaojiao the stick techniques. They saw the Wu brothers in a tree looking out. Guo Fu leapt up on the branch and then reached out her hand to Yang Guo, pulling him up. When Yang Guo held her soft and warm hand, he couldn't stop his heart from stirring, but immediately thought, "Even if you were 10 times as beautiful, you can't compare with my Gu Gu." Guo Fu quietly asked, "My mother hasn't arrived yet." Wu Ziyuan pointed to the west and quietly replied, "Elder Lu is practicing over there. Master and Master's wife went away to talk about something." The only person that Guo Fu is afraid of is her father. When she heard that he was here, she felt slightly uneasy. But when she saw Lu Yaojiao holding a bamboo stick pointing to the east and stirring to the west, she forgot her fear and quietly said, "That's the dog-beating stick technique," Wu Dunru said. "Most likely." Master's wife was teaching him when Master came over and said he had something to discuss with her. He led her to the side while Elder Lu practiced by himself. Guo Fu watched a few stances and felt that it was sluggish and didn't see anything special about it. She said, "Elder Lu hasn't learned it yet, and it isn't nice to watch. Let's go." Yang Guo saw that the stances that Elder Lu was using were identical to the ones that Hong Qigong taught him on top of Mount Hua. He chuckled in his heart. That girl doesn't know anything. The Wu brothers always followed Guo Fu's orders. They were about to jump down when they heard footsteps below. The Guo couple were walking over. They heard Guo Jing say, "Of course a decision about Fire's future can't be decided so lightly and suddenly. But Guo is young. It is unavoidable that young people will get into trouble. That business with the Quanjin sect doesn't seem to be all his fault." Huang Rong said, "I don't care about him causing trouble at Quanjin. You are respecting the long friendship between the families of Yang and Guo, as you should. But Yang Guo is very crafty. The more I look at him, the more he looks like his father. How can I relax and allow Fur to get married to him?" When Yang Guo, Guo Fu, and the Wu brothers heard this, they all were shocked. The four of them knew that the Guo and Yang families had some ties, but they didn't know that the previous generations had such deep ties. They could never have guessed that Guo Jing wanted to betroth his daughter to Yang Guo. That sentence affects all four of them. They all listened carefully, their hearts all racing. Guo Jing said, "Brother Yang Kang was unfortunate that he ended up in the Jin Palace and fell in with the wrong crowd. That's how he ended up like he did. In the end, he died without a full corpse. A soul, had he been in the care of Uncle Yang Taixin, he would never have ended up like that." Huang Rong sighed as she remembered the frightening events of that night at Jiaxing's Iron Spear Temple. Her heart froze and she quietly said, "You could say that?" Yang Guo does not fully understand his background. He knew that his father died earlier by someone's hand, but his own mother never revealed how he died or who killed him. Now he heard Guo Jing talking about his father and mentioned, "Ended up in the Jin Palace and fell in with the wrong crowd, and died without a full corpse." His body quivered as if he was struck by lightning. His face turned gray. Guo Fu glanced at him and saw that he was looking like he was in a trance. She was frightened and worried that he would suddenly fall and drop to his death. Guo Jing and Huang Rong sat down on a rock with their backs to the tree. Guo Jing lightly stroked Huang Rong's arm and warmly said, "Since you've been carrying our second child, your body has not been feeling well. Quickly pass on all the responsibilities of the Beggar Clan to Lu Yaojiao so you can rest properly." Guo Fu was delighted. "So Mother's having a baby. It'll be great to have a little brother. How come Mother never told me about this?" Huang Rong said, "I don't worry about the matters of the Beggar Clan that much. What I'm worried about is Fur's future." Guo Jing said, "Since the Quanjin won't take in Guor, I'll teach him myself. He's a very clever boy. Once he's learned all my skills in the future, the brotherly vow between his father and I won't have been in vain." Yang Guo now knew that Guo Jing was his father's sworn brother. The words Uncle Guo had a real meaning behind it. When he heard Guo Jing treating him with love in his words, he was touched. Tears almost rolled from his eyes. Huang Rong said, "That's what I'm afraid of, in case he's too clever for his own good. That's why I taught him to study and didn't teach him any martial arts. I hoped that he would become a deep, understanding, and righteous man, even if he didn't know any martial arts. I would have happily betrothed Fur to him in that case." Guo Jing said, "You have always planned everything to the last detail. This idea would have been good, but with Fur's temper and martial arts, wouldn't having her to marry a weak scholar be a bit harsh for her? Tell me, how could she respect him? In my opinion, such a couple would not get on well with each other." Huang Rong laughed and said, "You're shameless. So the reason why we are such a good couple is because you have better martial arts than me. Hero Guo, come, let's have a duel." After a while, Huang Rong sighed and said, "Ah, this matter is complicated. Even with Guo to one side, how can you separate the two Wu brothers? In your opinion, who is better?" Guo Fu and the Wu brothers' hearts naturally jumped. This wasn't related to Yang Guo, but he wanted to hear Guo Jing's opinion of the two. He heard Guo Jing go and didn't say anything for a while. In the end he said, "I can't give my opinions on them on small matters. Only when a person is faced with an important matter will they show their real character." His voice became soft and said, Fur is still young, we can still wait a few years. It could be that by then everything will have sorted itself out, and we won't have to worry about it. There's no need to exert yourself too much when teaching Lu Yaojiao the stick techniques. In the last few days, I've noticed that you don't seem to look well. I'm worried. I'll go and find Guo and talk to him. After he said this, he got up and walked to the road. Huang Rong sat on the rock and evened her breathing for a while before she instructed Lu Yaojiao to come over and perform the techniques. Lu Yaojiao displayed all 36 strokes of the technique, but Lu Yaojiao had yet to understand the formulae. Huang Rong kept her patience and explained everything more clearly to him. The stances of the dog-beating stick techniques are of course ingenious and masterly, and the formulae behind it extremely clever and ingenious. Otherwise, how could a little bamboo stick become the treasure of the Beggar Clan? Even with Ouyang Feng's great skills, he had to think deep and hard for a long while. How could the opponent overcome a stance or half a move? Guo Fu and the Wu brothers did not understand the stick techniques. They didn't have a clue as to what was going on, what the seal point was like, how the coil aim was meant to be, how the 18th change transforms into the 19th change, and how the 19th change can be altered into the 20th change. The three of them wanted to leap down from the tree, but were afraid that Huang Rong would discover them. They hoped that she would go through it quickly and then leave with Lu Yaojiao. But who could have guessed that Huang Rong had decided to hand over the position of chief to Lu Yaojiao today before the hero's feast? She decided she would impart all the formulae to him now. If he didn't understand it, she would slowly go over it with him later on. According to the rules of the clan, when he takes over the position, he must have learned the dog-beating stick technique. This is why that she spoke almost non-stop for around 2 hours. However, Lu Yaojiao wasn't the most gifted and he was now old. His memory is fading. How could he remember all this in just a short time? Huang Rong kept on going, passage after passage. It was hard for him to remember everything. Huang Rong had met Guo Jing when she was 15 and was used to being around someone who was slow and not the most gifted. She was angry about Lu Yaojiao's poor memory. The rules of the clan states that the formulae to the technique must be passed on down orally and must not be written down. Otherwise, writing it down and letting him slowly memorize, it would have saved a lot of effort and energy. That day on the peak of Mount Hua, after both Hong Qigong and Ouyang Feng had suffered internal injuries in their duel, Hong Qigong had taught Yang Guo every stance and every change so that he could perform it for Ouyang Feng. But he didn't teach him a single word of the formulae that are needed when fighting an enemy. Hong Qigong thought that without the formulae, the techniques would be useless to him. This doesn't really go against the rules of the clan, and at the time he wasn't fighting Ouyang Feng for real, so there was no need to pass on the formulae to the technique. Who could have guessed that Yang Guo would now hear the whole thing in its entirety? He was over 100 times more gifted than Lu Yaojiao. After just 3 recitations, he was able to remember the whole thing without forgetting a word. But Lu Yaojiao still wasn't able to remember as he recited it ambiguously. When Huang Rong became pregnant for the 2nd time, she became careless one day while meditating and disturbed the kai of the fetus. Because of this, she has become very weak. Today she had taught for over half a day and had become very tired. She sat on the rock and rested. She closed her eyes for a while and then called out, "Fire, rur, wenner, guor, come down at once." The 4 of them were shocked and thought, "So she knew we were here long ago?" Guo Fu said, "Mother, you really are great. Nothing can be kept from you." As she said this, she used a stance of the forest sends a sparrow and lightly leapt down in front of her. The Wu brothers followed while Yang Guo climbed down slowly. Huang Rong gave a hang sound and said, "You wanted to steal a look with your kung fu? If I couldn't even notice you little rascals, I'm afraid that when I'm traveling around Jianghu, I'd be ambushed in half a day." Guo Fu felt embarrassed by her mother's comments, but knew that her mother was lenient and wasn't afraid of being scolded by her. She laughed and said, "Mother, I brought these 3 along to take a look at the world-famous dog-beating stick technique. But who knew that when Elder Lu uses it, the skill doesn't look good at all? Mother, perform the skill for us." Huang Rong laughed and took the bamboo stick from Lu Yaojiao's hand. She said, "Fine, watch out, I'm going to trip a little puppy." Guo Fu concentrated on her lower body. As soon as the bamboo stick comes towards her, she will immediately jump and avoid the trip. Huang Rong's bamboo stick flashed across. Guo Fu quickly leapt up. Her legs were halfway away from the ground when the bamboo stick came across and skillfully and lightly tripped her up. Guo Fu got up and called out, "I'm not taking about that, it was my fault." Huang Rong laughed and said, "Fine, you chose what you want to do." Guo Fu steadied herself in the mount posture and stood solidly. She had another thought and then said, "Big brother Wu and little brother Wu, come to my side and get into the mount posture as well." The Wu brothers did as they were told and stood solidly. Guo Fu stretched out her arm and hooked it around the Wu brothers' arms, combining the strength of the three, as solid as Mount Tai. She said, "Mother, I'm not afraid of you. Only father's 18 dragon-subduing palms can push us." Huang Rong gave a slight smile and waved the stick across the three's faces. A strong gust of wind rushed upon them. The three of them all moved backwards to avoid it. The mount posture of the lower body loosened as a result. Huang Rong's bamboo stick returned and used the turn formulae. The stick brushed across the three's legs. The three of them could not stand steady and all fell down at the same time. At least the three's kung fu had a good foundation. Their bodies had just touched the ground slightly and they up immediately. Guo Fu called out, "Mother, that's just trickery. I'm not taking about that either." Huang Rong laughed and said, "Just now I passed on the 8 formulae to Lu Yaojiao: trip, chop, coil, poke, stir, lead, seal, and turn. Which one uses reckless strength? You said this is trickery. That's correct. In the martial arts, 90% of it is used to trick someone. As long as you've tricked a skilled fighter, you've won. Only your father's 18 dragon-subduing palms type of martial arts uses real kung fu to battle and doesn't use any sort of trickery. But how many people in the world can reach such a stage?" These words made Yang Guo nod in secret. He remembered the formulae that Huang Rong had recited and combined it with the stances that Hong Qigong taught him. The ingenuity and mastery behind it really was boundless. Though Guo Fu and the others understood what Huang Rong said, they didn't appreciate the meaning behind it. Huang Rong continued, "The dog-beating stick technique is Wulin's most unique kung fu. It forms a branch on its own and does not involve any other sect's kung fu. If you just learn the stances but don't know the formulae to accompany it, it is useless. Even if you are extremely clever, it will be very difficult to come up with formulae to accompany the stances. But if you just know the formulae without me personally teaching you the stances and only know the 8 words trip, chop, coil, poke, stir, lead, seal, and turn, the result is the same. Because of this, I'm not afraid of letting you 4 rascals eavesdrop. If I teach any sort of kung fu without my permission, you must not eavesdrop or practice in secret ever, understand?" Guo Fu agreed and laughed. "Mother, why should I try to practice your kung fu in secret? Could it be that you have other skills that you dare not teach me?" Huang Rong used the bamboo stick to lightly hit Guo Fu's behind. She laughed. "Go and play with your 2 Wu brothers. Guor, I want to speak with you. Elder Lu, take your time. If you can't remember it all, I'll teach you again tomorrow." Lu Yaojiao, Guo Fu, and the Wu brothers went on their way back to the Lu manor. Only Yang Guo remained. Yang Guo's heart raced. He was afraid that Huang Rong knew that he had secretly learned the dog-beating stick technique, and wanted to take his life. Huang Rong saw the frightened expression on Yang Guo's face. She took his hand and told him to sit down on the rock. She softly said, "Guor, there are many things that I don't understand about you. If I ask you, I know you won't tell me. But I can't blame you. When I was young, I was extremely eccentric. Your Uncle Guo had to tolerate me in everything I did." As she got up to this point, she lightly sighed, and then a smile came across her face as she remembered the times when she vented her anger when she was younger. She continued, "I didn't teach you martial arts because I wanted what's best for you. Who could have known that this caused you to suffer many hardships instead? Your Uncle Guo loves and adores me. Of course, I will do my best to repay his love. He has great faith in you and hopes that you will become a great man. I will do my best to help you so his wish can be granted. Guor, don't ever disappoint him, please." Yang Guo has never heard Huang Rong speak to him like this before, soft, gentle, and sincere. He saw her eyes were filled with love and he couldn't stop himself from being moved. Hot blood rose to his chest and he groaned.